I don't know why the Korean teams have been doing this. Remember the game 5 of last year's World Finals? Why did I have to watch Canyon play Trundle?
I know.
What is going on with you Korean teams? It's like, should we put our best star player, MVP player, on a champion where they can be active and show off their skill and carry the game? Nope, Yumi it is. It's like,
we're back for another episode of Summoning Insight.
We'll talk about all the semis and playoffs of MSI. We've got so much actually to discuss this week, not only about the whole issue of RNG winning from China on 35 ping, but the matches themselves. We got a conclusion to, well, the only conclusion that we will ever get to the Peter Zhang TSM drama that we've discussed on an episode of the Four Horsemen, which is on this channel previously. We also have the incredibly obvious results of the TSM investigation of Reginald's behavior, which we can discuss, even though there's still the ongoing question about the Riot investigation. So many different topics. Where would you want to start?
I want to do the Reginald one first, cause sort of the light-hearted humor. Like, I'll give you an angle. This is one of the things I've always found weird is how people never seem to ever guess my angle beforehand. Because here's one that I found very bizarre about the response to the TSM investigates TSM fucking results. Was like, remember, TSM are the ones who paid for it and arranged it, right? You are aware there's no legal requirement they ever publish that if they actually found they were guilty or something. In fact, at that point, spoiler, this happened many, many times. In fact, this is actually this might be what ESEC gets banged out on. ESEC apparently ages ago said that they were going to publish, like, you know, who funds them essentially and a bunch of their like financial stuff. So I saw Lurpus, because he's at odds with the ESEC at the moment. He was sort of like, oh, so where can I see these right now? Because here's the problem. That just because they say that on Twitter, they're not legally obliged to. They just said they do it to be nice. So same scenario. Here's what people haven't thought through. Bearing in mind TSM's investigating TSM. Spoiler, I suspect that's like when cigarette companies used to say, I want a study done that maybe doesn't find that cigarettes cause cancer in any way. And magically, you go away, you do a bunch of experiments, and the one that you bring back to your boss to get paid for the research thing finds out exactly what he wanted. First of all, there's that element obviously at play. And then secondly, as I say, imagine they'd come back and they go, well, you won't believe this, Reginald, but we actually did find a couple of angles, mate. Like, you know, you're doing this thing illegally. What do you think his next line is? Well, go ahead and publish it to the public. I'll be absolutely raked across the coals. By the way, he's involved in like actual legal case right now as well. Like, spoiler, there was never anything coming down the pipe on that one. Like, I can't even believe people think that was ever touch and go.
So, I mean, there's just so many layers of stupidity to this. So first off, the findings were that he didn't do anything illegal, which he was never accused of doing anything illegal, guys. As far as we can tell, he was just an asshole.
Aside from the contract stuff, which I don't think they were investigating anyway.
No, they weren't. So there's several things. Like, yes, they figured out that he wasn't being discriminatory against protected classes, which is illegal under California employment law. Now, it's a little bit interesting because we have video evidence of him using homophobic slurs against his employees previously. So that was a little interesting to me. But the other thing is they interviewed like 30 former or current employees. But if you are a current employee who has suffered, verbal harassment from Reginald, you probably aren't going to go to the TSM investigation and talk about it because you know that it wasn't illegal. And so you know what the findings going to be. The findings are everything is fine. Reginald's still CEO of the company and he's still in charge. So why would you want to put yourself in a position of weakness if you are still working there as part of this investigation? Now, the Washington Post article interviewed over a dozen, it said, current or former employees and found this history. And indeed, there were like half a dozen or so of the employees at TSM who told the investigation these things. But I think what's going to happen is that more of the people who are upset about this situation are more likely to go to the Washington Post or to the Riot investigation, which still, as far as we know, hasn't concluded. And obviously, Riot has a vested interest in covering this up as well, but the LCS Players Association is also involved in the Riot investigation, and so they are. I am hoping that they can be the neutral party that is the moderating force on this to prevent anything bad that happened from being covered up, guys. I mean, the other thing that was completely ridiculous about this is that Reginald published it in a twit longer on his own Twitter. So they're clearly trying to not put this out of the official TSM accounts. And it was just incredibly unprofessional. Like, it's clear TSM doesn't want their sponsors to really like see this. They don't want a bunch of replies onto the TSM social media. So they just did it casually on, Reginald's account. And they did it on the same day they released the Peter Zhang stuff to divert attention to it. So there were a lot of like really dirty tricks that were used in terms of PR to try and
also
minimize
looks
this.
like, to me, here's the difference. Back in the day, like the infamous one he did about you, where he did that fucking whack-ass apology in Twitlonger, where it was like all fucking terrible grammar, barely made any sense, like he fucking didn't really know how to start a sentence and end a sentence. First of all, you could even see on this one, they've cynically, this looked like a lawyer was involved, mate. This was like that was the real statement. So there's the other angle I find inauthentic as fuck. When you do the comment from Reginald's account, the implication is, I'm going to give you the real guys. I'm cutting out the PR middlemen. Let me tell you how it is. And then it's just obviously like fucking, listen, he couldn't write that fucking statement. I tell you that right now. So
No.
I don't believe it at all. He wouldn't write it that way. He's not as professional as that, is he? He's not as way he's playing.
No, but this is par for the course, guys, when it comes to esports and especially Riot-based esports, that there is never any lasting punishment for things that have gone wrong. Riot just paid $100 million divided among every woman who has ever worked at the company, and 0 people were fired. 0. Like the whole Scott Gelb like face farting incident. This also was Scott Gelb fired? No, he was given an unpaid vacation basically and some training for a few months, and he's still the CEO of the company. Like Riot doesn't care. Like once you reach the executive level, you are just immune from you're just immune from the effects of your actions. The company will just pay for it, put you on a nice vacation, and then you come back and you still have your job, even though clearly, there are plenty of executives that a company as rich as Riot could pay to come in and help run this company. They didn't even scapegoat anybody, which is insane. Like, I have never seen a scandal this big at a company and no one leaves. Like when the shit happened at Blizzard, the president of Blizzard left, guys. Like, the people stepped down, they fired people. There were no people fired from Riot at all. How can there'd be a culture of systemic abuse at this company that affected, according to the state of California, that affected every single woman who's ever worked there, and nobody was fired for it? So if you have hope that Riot's going to like put their foot down and say, oh no, even though nothing illegal happened with TSM, we're going to need you to like remove Reginald from the company. That's what they did with Echo Fox, by the way, is they said, because these things were happening, you need to get this person, out of the company entirely. They couldn't accomplish that goal. And so they had to kind of give up their slot. Right.
You could also say it's comparable to what happened with all those NFL owners and some of the shit that's gone on. I mean, even essentially what just happened.
Snyder's ridiculous. Like,
yeah, I mean, not even just the owners. I mean, even just what happened with John Gruden. Like, that's right in the Reginald wheelhouse. What are you talking about? That's the sort of level of unprofessional shit he was up to.
Yep. Yeah, that's actually a very good comparison, actually. And you know what? He was instantly removed as being, even though he had a 10-year contract with the Raiders, he was instantly removed in the middle of a season, guys, because of that. But it's okay. Reginald totally fine doing what he does, even though he continued the behavior that we've seen on video up until right now, basically, if we're to believe the reports that have come out and the things that people are saying publicly. So I wouldn't have a lot of hope if I were you guys for the Riot reaction. I mean, I think it's perfectly reasonable. Here's another question that I just don't know the answer to. Why is he so critical to this operation? TSM has a board that could remove him and replace him with somebody else. Like, what is he doing that is so crucial to the operations of this company at this point in time that he is irreplaceable in the board's eyes? It's wild.
Because the problem is, when you look at all the issues, they all stem from the fact that it doesn't seem like he ever truly delegates. Like, as they said in that Washington Post article, even when people would go away and do a whole project, at the end, it wasn't good enough because effectively you had to read Reginald's mind. It wasn't even if it was good. It was it exactly what he had in mind that he himself didn't know he wanted? Like, at that point in time, like, you're just not delegating at all there, mate. Like, you're not giving people a chance. So part of the problem for me is I think Reginald really does think he is Tony Stark and this is Stark Industries and he's like essential to the project. Whereas, as you say, the joke is, you've already made it. You've done the bank heist, Reginald.
Yes.
You can actually just sail off, live on a fucking tropical island while getting infinite passive income into your life. Instead, for some reason, you are doing the only things that could risk you actually not being involved in TSM anymore. This is the only way you can fuck it up, is by being you publicly on camera. So you're doing it for some reason. I don't know why. By the way, one thing that annoys me as well is how many fucking years did you and me have to hear the shittiest apologies of all time? And I'm talking about apologists as in people defending the position, not apologising on behalf of him. And it went like this. Well, it's been many years since then, so I'm sure he has grown and improved. Based on what? Based on what? Because the entire time, just like with Reckless, where I know what I'm talking about, I have all the teammates, just like that, I was hearing from people literally up to even last season, Reginald is still the same way. He still busts in the room. When he comes in, you don't talk the same way you do in front of the other teammates. He criticises people. He says things about the game. He fucking walks in like he's a coach and starts telling you what you're doing wrong in the game. Like, he does all the same shit he did before. They told me essentially it's more just like he like nominally is like hands off now, but he can't help himself. He's one of those people. It's like me and Twitter. He has to open it. He has to go and see it, doesn't he? He can't fucking stay away. So difference is, I'm not doing anything to fuck anyone else's life up, am I? Except for the ones who deserve it.
I mean, I think the whole situation is like, I think it's pretty clear cut at this point in time. Even if it was like 20% of the people they interviewed said that there were pretty severe issues. If you have 20% of your employees willing to speak up about this, guys, that means there's more. By the way, there definitely means there's at least a few more, if not many more, who are not willing to speak up. How can you work at a company where 20% of your employees are being treated this way? That's completely unprofessional. And here's the thing about startups versus established companies. It takes different kinds of people to create a startup oftentimes than it does to run an established company. And that's why a lot of startups end up handing off the executive or leadership roles once they've kind of made it in terms of stability as a company, because there's often, it's kind of a Wild West scenario when you're starting up a company, as opposed to the protocols and the professionalism that are required to structure a company for the long term. And while Reggie may have been the person who took advantage of the Wild West phase of esports and TSM at the time, like, I don't think it's a big issue to transition him to somebody else at this stage, just as that's true with a lot of esports companies. So it confuses me, the insistence that Riot, that TSM have in keeping these people on when they are certainly not irreplaceable.
The thing I found so dodgy is the point you made, that if you look at the way they've chosen to communicate, it actually does. This isn't like when Lena just rushes to Reddit and starts replying to TSM fans, naming her sponsor as the reason that you're having a fucking sound leak, which is that's just pure incompetence. You got to understand, that's just an idiot doing something stupid that they think is the correct decision, totally premeditated, and that's genuinely what they thought was like, they waited up and then they hit send. No, there was no timer, no gun to the head, no fucking like block about to drop. They just chose to do that. That's what an idiot they are. But in the way that Reginald did it, like you said, they would have done it through the TSM account if they wanted the whole world to see it. They would have done it on the website if they wanted this to counter. And more importantly, if this proved that it was all bullshit, it was all nonsense, they would be fucking shout. That would be in skywriting, like Carlos style, across fucking LA right now. But it isn't. And the reason why I find it sinister is this. Whenever I see these articles that tell me that TSM is worth $400 million as a valuation for their company, here's what people don't understand.
Spoiler.
Like, these are the things that kill those valuations dead. Like, no one wants to be involved with companies where they think like the founders are fucking idiots, or it's a terrible place to work, or even worse, think about the Washington Post. Like, that implies like you can't have innovation there, you won't have creativity, you don't crowdsource the best brains and get the best ideas. It all goes through the fucking sort of the sluice gate of one guy's brain, and if he disagrees, it all gets tossed to one side. That's the sort of thing where, by the way, spoiler, if he ever goes public, that'll make your stock price fucking tank, boys. That's the sort of shit where people lose confidence in the company. So it's actually very key that TSM also plays this very carefully. Like, fans now are going to go, what do you mean it is all over Reddit? You idiots. No one fucking looks at Reddit who's outside of the industry. They don't give a flying fuck. They don't even know what Reddit is, do they? They know what it is, exists as a site. Like, they're not even on it anyway. That's bored people at work in America. So at the moment, they've done a very good job keeping it. But I'm waiting for the day, by the way, where finally that shit does break out. Because I even think it's the same thing with Riot and Blizzard. It's only the sexual harassment stuff that leaks out out into the mainstream from those companies, right? It's never somehow all the other stupid shit they do and all the harebrained schemes they have. Because the day those things ever get out, they're actually going to have to face the real world consequence of what happens when you fuck around like that and you are either a public company and you have shareholders to account for, or like that's the other thing Reginald doesn't have right now, or you're in a situation where you got massive VC pumped in and people are like, well, why am I giving you the next round if this is going on? So they're lucky right now. They're sort of fucking skating on thin ice, but they're just surviving. And it's only going to take one more big thing, in my opinion, before it goes to shit.
Yeah, and I think too, like it was very interesting, the framing that nothing illegal had occurred. And also, just as a point, now I've said this many times, there is no reason to believe that anything illegal happens, such as discrimination based on a protected class, sexual harassment, these issues. But also, if in the digging it is found, like, or if somebody comes forward with these claims, why would they tell the TSM investigation? Why would they do that when they know there are other independent investigations happening? So, like, it was very unlikely to turn up the same people, or at least some of the same people who were probably concerned for their jobs based on what they said. And it's certainly, considering you know what's going to happen, it certainly probably wasn't going to turn up anything illegal, because that behavior, if it existed, which no reason to believe it does, again, if it existed, would not be turned up by this investigation when everyone knows there's a concurrent investigation going on that would be a lot safer to tell these things than the lawyers TSM hired. Basically.
The main problem I have is this. It's because no one except Doublelift publicly comes forward. I already, like you said, I've already written off the idea Riot's ever going to do anything, even, by the way, just for sure. I think they'll also just find not anything conclusive in their report. The real one I'm interested in is the legal case potentially against them from the state of California of whether or not, because actually the way it was characterized, how they were using contractors, absolutely does look very dodgy. And as you know, with the whole TFU thing and some of the things happening in the last few years with, is an organization a company with employees or is it an agency? And that was like a very fucking fraught aspect. And so that's what I want to see, because if people don't know, that has the possibility to be an enormous precedent in esports that could tear the entire industry up. Like, spoiler, if they get close to TSM on that, and it's like TSM, it's touch and go, I think it's like the phase one. I think that some sort of settlement happens, or you take a plea bargain or something. You don't let that go through, because it could just ruin the whole industry.
I mean, I can just tell you guys straight up, that issue that was brought up about TSM and contractors in the state of California, basically every esports team is guilty of doing that at a certain point in time.
Yes. It's how, by the way, and this is even how you're able to run. The spoiler is, if you didn't do that, most companies would have to leave California. They'd have to go somewhere else in the US, because this is how people are getting a competitive edge on each other. They are saying that someone's a contractor, but then they're doing all these things as if you're an employee. Like, come on Monday morning, you have to live in California. You have to play in this scenario. I actually brought this point up on another show. The first time I ever heard this, actually, it was way before the TFU thing. It was when Sean Gares himself had that dispute with Reginald over whether they had to play in PEA or whether they could choose to play in the ESL Pro League. Because what Sean Gares told me was, he said, I've looked into this. He can't legally tell me as a contractor I have to play in this league on this day. And this. He said that's not the way it works. Like you set like finite goals that are set in a certain way, and I can kind of have some say in how it's done. Like, because I'm not his employee. And I remember thinking back then, like, mate, that's a bigger issue than you and Reginald. And this night, you are aware you're sat on like the bottom that blows up Californian esports if it ever goes off. So, like, yeah, waiting a long time. It's another one of the ones like the IP rights. I'm just waiting for these battles to happen, because they're going to happen eventually, with the millions and millions of dollars going up and up and up and up.
I mean, I think that that practice is very uncommon in the industry now. It was mostly an issue like several years ago, like 5+ years ago. So I don't think that particular like contractor thing is as common as it used to be. But I also don't know about TSM's in particular practices, but that practice has gone down dramatically over the last few years across most of the team. So very interesting though. very, very interesting. I mean,
I'll say this very carefully. Based on information I've seen, I suspect that Bjergsen was breaking all kinds of laws along with Reginald in America, like immigration laws, work laws, as we say, contract laws. And that's your pride and joy, remember, TSM fans. It's all about Bjergsen. He was the success story in TSM. Was he fuck? Like everyone, they're all little fucking rats using every little corner they could in the industry. And it's only, this is how it works in every industry, by the way, it's only when you all make so much money. Now, the joke is, like, people know this back in the day, the mafia guys, they're just the lower level level criminal. Once you get really big, you go legit, don't you? The joke is even the mafia want to go legit and actually have a real business and not have to be the fucking guys beating you up. They want the real casino where you just make all the money. Like, that's the way that every industry operates, I'm afraid. You start off at the bottom, and as I say, the premise back then goes, if you were the moral actor, you're just at a massive competitive disadvantage to the guys who will abuse these things. Like, if you sit there back before people got good lawyers and you had the precedent, you could get those visas, logically you would apply and get a filled visa. Meanwhile, the other guys played on his tourist visa. Like, that's where the esports was the Wild West, basically.
You know, all I'll say is that in the early days, I'm not going to discuss specific instances, but in the early days of LCS, there was a lot of illegal shit going on.
Sure.
There was a lot. There was a lot, guys. Speaking of illegal shit, you want to talk about the conclusion of the Peter Zhang investigation? If you guys didn't see this, Richard Lewis wrote an article on Deserto, which talks about a lot of the allegations that we brought up on the Four Horsemen. Again, we didn't know what the conclusion of this would be at the time, but basically, in essence, he was in fact taking money from the players. He was in fact in cahoots with a player agent and arguably acting as an agent himself. So his claims about his innocence seem not realistic, but he also won't, he went back to China. He will not, provide any evidence of his claims, which obviously makes it look dubious. It's not an indictment, but it makes it look dubious. And he was, directing player salaries and funds into his accounts, and still hasn't come up with a lot of the money that he was accused of taking, as far as the people whom he took it from have been willing to share. So
I will say, all you need to know is this. When I just Googled it right now, here is what it says in the Wikipedia. The United States lacks extradition treaties with China. So, spoiler, I think this is the end of the case. He's never coming back. He's never getting punished.
He's never coming back to the US.
Probably just stay. As far as we know, the name Peter Zhang stays in China for the rest of esports and maybe works there. Who the fuck knows? That would be my guess. I have to say, though, if you notice on the Four Horsemen show, even though he himself in his testimony claimed he was innocent, this is all, wrong, or it's misunderstanding, or they don't, it's miscommunication. I actually already had the sense, my fucking radar went off as soon as I heard that story. There's definitely some fuckery on his side, was my suspicion. Especially because if you notice, the real problem with that story wasn't he might have taken this one player's money here. It looks like he actually used, this ties into the Reginald angle, he used actually the poor structure and I would say internal oversight within TSM as a structure. He actually used that to exploit every relationship. It looks like it looked like he got the org to pay more, and then he got players to pay more, then he held on to some money for players who needed it and sold things for players, and every scenario he's always the middleman. Somehow that the money goes through, and guess what? I imagine that was planned so that he could take part of all the top of all of them. And so in the end, look, it doesn't look as bad as I'd initially heard. I'd heard maybe he'd even gotten fucking hundreds of thousands extra out of TSM on, say, the Sword Art deal, for example. It looks more like we're talking tens of thousands, 30,000 here, 20,000, but it all adds up. And at the end of the day, this is the key thing to remember. I know it's sort of sexy as if he stole $2 million or something, but we're talking about amounts of money where if you steal that from a shop, you go to prison, mate. You will have a very hefty fucking record after that, and you will not absolutely skip away and just do another job if you did that in a fucking retail industry.
Let's be clear. That's the money he took from the players. We actually still don't know if he was taking a cut off the agents' fees for buyouts for these players from the Chinese side.
I suspect they'll never let that come out publicly because it'd be so embarrassing if you're TSM. It'd be so embarrassing. If they found out you got rinsed for $500,000, you'd look like an idiot, wouldn't you? I know.
Because they were paying big TSM. Because we can just put this together. Reginald said that the roster they put together was equivalent in cost to the Vulcan Jensen roster that they could have had. Yes. The super team that they could have had. Yep. Which means, by the way, because these TSM players did not have very large salaries, because I know all of the team's salaries, compared to other teams, they weren't anywhere near the top of the league when it came to salaries for these players, which means that the buyouts were probably relatively significant. If we're to believe what Reginald says about the cost. Now, if the buyouts are significant, the issue is that Peter Zhang was the one who was in cahoots with the player agents saying oh yeah, we're going to get this player on the team. And then we don't know if he was taking half of the agent's fees of those buyouts, right? He could have easily said, this is the situation we talked on the Four Horsemen, where he goes to the agent and he says, look, man, we can pay you like we can pay a big buyout for this player. You're going to get a lot of money, but in order to make that happen, in order for this player to get on TSM, I'm going to need a kickback on that. So basically it does look like he selected these players due to the connections he had with their agents, was effectively playing both sides at the same time. And I would assume received some sort of kickback on the buyout.
I even say that is
we'll never know.
Look, that's obviously an extreme version, but that is also, by the way, sort of how business is just done over there. People don't know. Like, for example, famously, if you're a Western company, you do something in China, you have to get a local partner, and then you have to pay like a fee for a license. And it's all just bollocks to just give people middlemen money again and let you have access to the area. Like, you could have done it all yourself in the same way as obviously they could talk directly to the player and get him on side. But as we've said on past episodes, like the Asian transfer market is totally different to the Western one. Even what they call agents, like I say, it can be their dad sometimes, and maybe he just wants a cut as well because he's their dad. Like there's so much sort of the unusual, unorthodox approaches over there.
Right, and to Thorin's point, this may be common among buyouts for Chinese players. For all the fuck I know, this could, among Chinese teams when they are transferring players to each other, this could be common. Like, but it is definitely not okay in Western League of Legends.
Yes, exactly.
Or I would say ethically, but that's my standard. So he may have been doing something that to him appeared normal, but when viewed from the lens, because the thing about Peter Zhang is nobody who knows him thinks he was a particularly bad actor, which is why this was all so surprising. I don't really know what to make of that, considering the information that has come out, but he does seem to have overlooked the seriousness of his own actions and maybe, didn't think about what he was doing as he was doing it.
I mean, I get the vibe because I've always personally found him to be someone where I don't think he's like an inherently malicious actor. I just think he's not that smart, basically. And so, unfortunately, the read I got on this was, it's a bit like, I'll give you an example. It's another a fucked up example, but if you try and put yourself in the player's position, you can almost see it, right? So basically, in MIBR in CSGO, the Brazilian team, they had a situation where their players publicly came out and were saying like that they hadn't been like paid all the money they were owed, or that like they all had stolen money from them. But when you actually looked into it, I went to the end of this whole story. When I looked into it, what they actually meant was this. Oh no, they were paid not only all their contract's money, they were even paid a bonus they hadn't activated in their contract, but they just thought other people make more money in other orgs, and I deserve that, and I'm better than him. And they were using that logic to say that it was stolen from them, which is like, that's like, words have a meaning here. That's not what the word stolen means at all. That's not what the word owed means. Like, what you mean is, I think my value is greater, and they didn't give me my full value. Like, that's not to do that. So I think it's more in that wheelhouse, where I think he might even have thought to himself, like, well, I'm doing all this extra work, and I'm like the guy getting you the player, and then I'm dealing with it, and then I'm helping you scout the players. It's like, you know what? I get my B quit all the way along as well. Maybe I take a little bit out of it. Maybe he thought he was entitled to it. It wouldn't surprise me. A lot of people, by the way, who do criminal things have a justification like that. They have sort of a reason for themselves as to why, it's like the classic one is they'd screw me if they had the chance, and then you just do it anyway in that sense. That's why, in my opinion, by the way, you don't ever do actually like the fucking, what does it call it? The brazen rule. You don't really treat other people how they treat you. You actually treat other people how you want to be treated. That's the key distinction there, isn't it? Because that's how you make a better moral world. Otherwise, you just all sink to the bottom. And it's just just animals fighting each other to the death. It's not any way to live at that point in time. Speaking of animals fighting each other to the death, League of Legends, anyone? Should we talk about MSI? Because, by the way, mate, one thing we have to get into to start out with is this. So remember, in our minds, we're at the semi-finals now. We did all the rest of MSI. We did the Rumble stage with the group. Here's my problem with MSI as a tournament. I know there was only going to be one obviously good series, which was the final. And if you're lucky, you got the G2 T1 could have been better, and it could have been a great. So you could have two series. Every other fan seems to actually have been deluded enough to think both semi-finals would be great. I can't even believe this going in, because I couldn't believe this. So here's the thing. On the EG side, it's not that people were picking EG to win, but they were just like, they took that one T1 win and fucking hell, they milked it, Monty. I even heard, here's what I hate. I hate when people do the Mott and Bailey approach, where basically what you do is you take a really provocative stance. The provocative stance goes like this. EG's already got capable players. These NA players are as good as the Jensens and the Doublelifts of the world. They're getting experience and they can compete now. We're in the game. Now, here's how you know they didn't ever believe that, any of the people involved. Because the second they lost, and people like me pointed out, you do know you actually won 1 out of 13 games, 12 games or whatever. And on top of, no, it was 13, I think. 1 out of 12 games, or 13, and on top of that, that was a throw. Like, then they suddenly go, whoop, and they go back to this position that goes, well, they're just rookies getting experience, and besides, they did sweep the minor regions. It's like, whoa! You see how crazy the fucking mismatch between those two statements is. Like,
let me. This is. I'm just going to explain the Mott and Bailey to people as it's a logical fallacy basically, and it's a rhetorical trick that people use. And what a Mott and Bailey is that it's an old type of fortress, which is it's like on a hill, and it has a wooden ring around it, like a wooden wall, and then on the inside it has a separate. Then there's like space between that wall where they're like houses and shit or other buildings, and then there's like a fortress at the center of it. So when you say Mott and Bailey, basically you have your fake defense, your first defense around the outside, and when that is breached, you retreat into the inner castle, and that's the Bailey that you sit in. And so what he's saying is that their initial defense of these players was, you know, a weak defense, and then they retreated to a different, stronger defense that doesn't actually logically track with what they were initially saying.
Like, think about it logically. If their position is just, well, you know, they did what they could and they're still young, but you know what? They beat all the minor regions, then you would have said they have 0 chance against RNG, they will get shit stomped, and why does anyone even care? In fact, you'd even say, what a miracle to win the game against T1. But as we see, they just want to keep veering between the two positions. Because the AG one I thought was pathetic. I couldn't believe how many fans really thought they had any world in which they were going to win games. Like, that was never going to happen, even if RNG didn't win this tournament. And then if we switch to the G2 one, that's almost as bad. Because here's the problem. I'm totally, by the way, down for the idea when G2 themselves had the super team. I used to do this. You remember when we did the episode where we were talking about when they were going to play like Damwon or whatever in the semi-finals? I remember even saying, look, I have to say Damwon's the better team, but I don't pick against Perks, for example, because I've just seen him do too many amazing things. This G2 team's done too many amazing things. Like, I can't pick against them because they've got the track record and the character where they could win this game even if they're an underdog. Here's what I don't get, Monty. First of all, there were people trying to conflate that storyline with that G2 lineup from 3 years ago and being like, well, G2 in the past have beaten T1 in semi-finals. First of all, it was only Faker in that lineup, and G2 itself has 2 players. But then the other thing is this. The actual hopium and corpium of believing G2 were the favourite, I can't even rationalise that. And I would have told you that before the series even began. Because if people don't know, on the desks, right, it was like, I think Dagda had it as like 3-2 for G2 winning the series. Emily Rand had T1 winning 3-2. By the way, that's how far we've gone with the brainwashing when Emily Rand has to say 3-2 for T1. 3-2, love, really. You see, you're picking the right team, but even you're giving the concession, like, be fucking close, though. I want it to get past Flackhead. Sort it out. And then they had Dracos come in, and yes, Monty, you're all going to say now the stupid thing everyone's going to say. We just did it for the show, didn't he? Did it for drama reaction. Dracos came in and said 3-0 G2. And here's the problem: if you actually listen to what he said and you look what he said on Twitter, he didn't do it as a joke. He actually meant it. He even, I think on the podcast, I think it's in Euphoria, had it as like 55-45 for G2. It's like, look, it's not that you get wrong, by the way. Predictions technically don't matter. But in this particular case, the prediction has to match your analysis. You don't do the analysis like this, Monty. Well, FaZe Clan should win the major, then they've got a better map pool. I think actually they'll neutralise Simple. And at the end, lol, that'll be 2-0, 16-0 every time. Like, that'll be stupid. That doesn't work as a prediction. I can be wrong with my prediction, but my prediction must be connected to my analysis. So I don't even know. Part of me thinks some of these people do believe these predictions, but I also think they're just selling a false bill of goods to the broadcast. Like, what are we doing here? Why are we being silly?
I think what's strange about this for me is that if the situation with G2 had been reversed, where they were very good in their second round robin leading into the playoffs, yes, and they were getting those wins, as opposed to the first round robin kind of getting figured out and then falling off pretty heavily as soon as Ornn got banned, basically, and a lot of these kind of top lane matchups that were kind of suspect when they happened, but were still pulling out wins rather inexplicably. As soon as that went away and they were doing very poorly on the second round robin heading into the playoffs, it seemed pretty obvious that their strategy had been solved. And you would have to basically believe that they were going to come up with an entirely new bag of tricks. But unfortunately, we had already seen their bag of tricks. Their bag of tricks was can't play Gwen, will play Vladimir and Riven as hopeful counters to the Gwen.
They had less tricks by the end of that phase, right? They ran out of answers.
Exactly. We saw the tricks, right? We saw them.
Yes.
And so, like, do you really believe that they have suddenly solved a Gwen counter pick in the top side that will make them able to play through Broken Blade? Because the alternative logic is that, okay, so they can't play through Broken Blade. It's not like Broken Blade was inting. He just wasn't a factor in their wins, which is very different than the way they've been winning this for the majority of this year, when Caps was very underwhelming during the spring split. So they can't do what they were doing earlier, which is play through Broken Blade. Caps had some insane performances, so they were playing through Caps, and he was carrying. But the other option is, when you are playing world-class teams, you can't have a single threat in a best of 5. Like, that doesn't work. Even some of the best teams in the world who have tried that, as in the Uzi teams mostly, were not able to like really win titles based off of that strategy.
They won very few titles. Yeah,
it's super hard to do that, guys. You can be good, but you can't be great at an international. That's not a tournament winning strategy. And so that means that by default, you must believe that they are going to play through 2 rookies, Flacket and Targamas, in the bot lane or Caps. And they have to win through these factors. And they had been winning through those factors, but the competition was ratcheted up, and it's a best of 5 where they've seen the tricks already, so you're not going to be able to resort to those. And so it seemed, look, I thought it was going to be 3-1. I thought T1 would like into game and like Caps would pop off or both. Like, G2's not a bad team by any means. They're just not in this meta. Let me rephrase. In this meta, they are not a complete team, because when Gwen becomes the ascendant pick and you as a team cannot play this Gwen, you have a lot of fucking problems.
By the way, spoiler, as we found in the final, there are no Gwen counters. But we'll get to that. That delicious razor cake's coming for the final. Because as I've always said, I do hate it, and I know coaches, it drives them mad. When players are like, no, I don't play the new champion that's OP, but I have the counters. It's like, fuck your mythical counters. I will wait to see them in the game. Spoiler, have you got any examples of anyone else doing these counters, or are they purely hypothetical in a scrim in your mind? Because they nearly always are, spoiler. So here's one thing. I agree also with the characterization. Here's why it doesn't even work narratively, Monty, because as you say, here's the logic they were using. Well, G2 started off amazing on that streak. What happened to them since? Ignore that. Oh, but T1, they started off a bit dodgy. How did it end? Oh, ignore that they went like 5 out of their last 6, and if anything, they were the ones peaking. Give me a fucking break. This is amateur hour shit, boys. Those storylines don't make sense. Like, one of them can't be applied to the other one, because one goes only the first part counts, and then the latter part doesn't count. It's like, which is the more relevant part going into the playoffs? As Monty says, if anything, you know who the team is at the end of the Rumble phase. You don't know at the beginning. They're still figuring it out. They're trying new shit out on the patch, etc. Like, you know at the end though. Like, actually, that's the biggest joke of all. It's like I also knew in the series, by the way, there's no way G2's winning when they just drafted like away from Caps immediately. Like, what the
did
fuck?
You like the Cal?
I know.
So here's the thing, when you come into the first game of the series with Caps, who had been doing like 27% or something of their team's damage, like up until that point, he was the clear carry, and he was, we've all seen those amazing like Yasuo plays that he had, really, really impressive stuff from Caps. And when their game plan is as follows: don't play through Caps, right? Play towards the bottom side of the map.
To the Phoenix, yeah.
So, and like really actively put a lot of jungle pressure down there, try and make plays on that side of the map. What this says, guys, is that in their scrim, so either you can believe that they didn't know this about their wins, which, I mean, they're not stupid, right? And Dylan Falco's not stupid. So what this tells you, if we read between the lines, is that their scrims of playing through mid were going very badly. And the logical conclusion they reached from their practice was that the best way to win was to play through the bottom side. Now, why would they reach this conclusion? I think it's probably likely that their bot duo was doing very badly in lane during scrims. And so they felt they needed help, because when they played through mid lane, they would die in bot and then lose the game. Yes. So even though the ceiling of that strategy of not playing through Caps, or playing through Caps was higher. If you play through Caps, you can beat these good teams. We've seen it, right? Apparently, by the end, it just wasn't reliable. Again, we've discussed, you can't play through Broken Blade because he doesn't have the champion pool on this patch in order to make that effective. Therefore, even though it has a lower ceiling, it has a higher floor, and so we have to play through the bot lane. That would be my reading of their conclusions about how scrims were going and why we saw what we did in these games.
I actually found that semi-final to just be pretty shit too. It's not even, by the way, this is the most underwhelming part. It's not even like T1 was playing flawless League of Legends. There was plenty of openings in those games. In fact, they even played fairly aggressively. It's just that actually G2, by the way, they looked like a team that has had their shit pushed in scrims, probably by both, if I had to guess, by both RNG and T1. They looked like one of those teams that you sometimes get where this is one of the reasons why no one believes in NA Week 2 at Worlds. That's when the team have played so many games and they've won 1 out of 12 that in their brain it's like, how do we even win one of these? Like, that was a scrim, even, for fuck's sake, we can't win one of them. It's like, that's when people just like, that's why people don't get it. As weird as it sounds, it would actually be better for League in terms of if you want parity between the regions, that they're either super familiar, you play all the time, so you're forced to level up in this sense, or you don't. You just come for a weekend tournament and you don't scrim the team. I actually think sort of the middle ground essentially creates the worst scenario for the Western team. It's like you start figuring out there's a meta you're not that quite good at. Start trying to get good at it, but you've got like half a week to do it, and then start playing the games immediately. Meanwhile, they come in, they've got their sense of how to play because they're already coming from the best regions. They tweak a couple of things, check out what you're doing in scrims, ban these 2 things, and then you're just shit out of luck when you get into the real match, and every idiot fan's going, what a moron, I already drafted this here. It's like, the draft's nearly always based on what was going on in the scrims, especially MSI, remember, because there's so few teams, it's going to make the draft conclusions even crazier. I mean, at least in this case, you could practice against the Koreans if you had the actual like hookups for the scrims. It's even worse when it's in like NA or something, because then it's just like you're in this fucking black box scrim environment and we're just all guessing from the outside, aren't we? So you might even be right and we're the idiots. Who knows?
Yeah, and there were a lot of teams actually in Korea. So, Team Liquid and 100 Thieves are there on boot camps right now, plus all of the Korean teams and Chinese teams and Taiwanese teams that might have been scrimming during these periods. So you actually do, when you're in Asia, have a lot of non-tournament teams that you can scrim against, because other people are also going to be boot camping there or are just close enough to the servers that enough teams are going to be active, because teams want to be in that environment scrimming. It's an incredible advantage because some of the best teams in the world are going to be there, and they're going to want scrim opponents that aren't in the tournament. So you can take advantage of that and get yourself some really good practice if you're smart about how you do it. So, I mean, this, as good as G2 was at times during this event, and I think they showed, well, I think Caps showed why he's such a fucking world-class player. It was, and as good as Targamas and Flackett have been as new players to the game, I think it was an unreasonable expectation for them to beat T1 in this semifinal because they're too new. It's the same shit that happened last year with T1 at Worlds. Like, this was a really young roster that contained a lot, at the time, like rookie players, right?
And so they played 2 full splits with the same lineup.
Yeah, and they hadn't played 2 full splits with a solid lineup. So it made sense that they weren't necessarily going to win Worlds that year. Right? The experience actually does fucking matter a lot in this game. And you combine that with the fact that a lot of these players hadn't had much stage experience, and especially audience experience. And I think that a lot of the young players, in spite of not having significant crowd experience, did very well in this event. And that includes players on EG as well. I don't understand why G2 wasn't held to the same kind of standard that EG was, which is that EG has a bunch of new players. We need to give them time. This is a valuable experience for them. Nobody's ever boot camped in Korea before because of the pandemic. If you're a new player, they've never, have scrimmed or practiced against some of these top level teams. It's an excellent experience that they'll learn from. And I don't think that either G2 or EG's performance is particularly embarrassing if you consider all of the factors that went in there. Now, if Team Liquid had come to this event and done as poorly as EG with their, in terms of record, with the veteran players that they had, I think that is very disappointing, which also says that Team Liquid's inability to even make this tournament is even more disappointing.
Sure. Right, here's the thing. Let's do the final then. Because here's the first thing I want to ask you is, I know a massive point of discussion has been actually just about how people reacted to the final. Because spoiler, if you hadn't noticed, Koreans seem like the most polite, fucking mannered, honourable people ever when they win. But you know what? When they lose, and in a scenario where China is the one they're losing to, guess what? They get a little bit touchy. There's a little bit of, there's a different sort of tone to how they do the press conference. So I know one big thing was this, Monty, was in the final, Blue side won every single game, right? This was obviously brought up of like, should Pult and T1 have said it though, or is that bitching and what is that? What? Just give me your initial thoughts outside of the context of that. What, this was a tournament, like, let's be real, it's another tournament where Riot made it so one side had to do permanent bans, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can argue about it. Like, we didn't see a lot of Lucian picks. And the problem with permabans is that we saw 3 Lucian games over the entirety of MSI, and it was 100% win rate. Otherwise, it was banned every single game. So we have to believe that teams were leaving it open during scrims and concluding that it was just too fucking strong, right? But because we didn't see these scrims, we can't actually know.
Yes.
And because scrims are scrims and they tend to be bloodier, sloppier, if a Fed Lucian exists, right, where he has a gazillion kills, he may be very overpowering. If he exists in a way where he has 1 or 2 kills, which he might if he's very strong at the professional level in a real game, does he take over the game in the same way? But let's assume that the teams judged that properly and that he was indeed very OP. It's still objectively ridiculous to say what Pult said. And what's even more ridiculous is that he's fucking Pult. Like, he's not some random. He is a player who was a professional player across multiple titles, like a championship level StarCraft 2 player. He was known for his creativity and his kind of outside the box thinking skills as a professional player. He transitioned into TFT and became one of the best TFT players in the world very, very quickly. I've talked to Doa about him, who Doa casted him in StarCraft 2 and then also casted him in TFT later on and was very impressed with the transition that Pult had made. He's an extremely adaptable human being. For those of you who don't know, he's Korean and he basically moved to the United States and is fluent in English as well. He's a very smart guy.
I think he was Huni there, right?
Yeah, he went in Texas. So, he is, I really like Pult. But Pult doesn't, he's smart, but he only has a limited experience with League of Legends so far. So first off, I would take what he says about LoL with a grain of salt, because yes, he's head coach of that team. That means different things in Korea. And he is drawing from his background as a professional gamer in order to make the kind of practice environment, player interactions, everything like that good, because he's older and respected as a very successful professional player himself. But he's not going to be responsible for a lot of the strategy that goes on in games. And frankly, it is lame of him to say, we lost because of the side. I mean, I don't know any professional gamer. Well, I mean, besides like really complainy ones like Naniwa maybe in StarCraft, who, a lot of pro gamers aren't just going to be like, well, Protoss Imba. They're going to try and figure out ways to win, or they're certainly not going to make that excuse. They're going to want to figure it out and make themselves better. So I felt like it was really disappointing from him in a way and really flippant about the situation. And if he's doing it to protect his players, that's one thing. But I mean, we'll get into like why they lost and what it showed about particularly their players' champion pools and their ability to play out different strategies. But in my mind, that was a much bigger factor than the blue side selection. Like, they started moving into, the longer the series goes on, they start moving into red side kind of like, they were banning Viego and Nautilus, right? It's not like they didn't have bans to use on things that were not necessarily the most OP shit in the game. The problem is they used those bans badly. And they weren't in a position to really cater to their players' strengths, and their players were not in a position to play good picks in this meta.
By the way, on the point about what Pult said, here's the thing I thought was really stupid about that as a PR angle, is what that actually says, if you translate it into what it infers about Pult's players, is that Pult's players are at best equal to RNG's players. Hence, if the side is OP, there's the team on the winning side wins the game. If his players, like I would want to believe, as Pult and T1 and a Korean, by the way, are superior to the RNG players, man for man, collectively as a team, then I should be able to maybe overcome. I would even say something like, obviously the side imbalance played a role in how we drafted and played, but ultimately the performances on, I'd say something like that, I'd make it like that angle. Because to me, the weirdest part about this is, I think the silliest thing about the way this final went is, like I said before we did this show, I don't even think RNG sent the best roster China has in the LPL. I think they have much stronger players on other teams. If anything, though, the cool thing about RNG is they're the bloody brain team, aren't they? They're the ones that just figure out how to win. So the joke really there is, like, it can't just be side imbalance, can it? Because I actually think they overall have inferior players to T1, but they won 3 out of 5 games, and it isn't just because they're on that side, was it? It can't only be that.
Yeah, and I think what ended up happening is that T1 made some ego drafts and ego selections, and they tried to fall back on comfort. And we talked about this. I have been talking about this for months about T1. For the last half of the spring split, they played one style of League of Legends, and they couldn't be banned out because there were enough iterations of a very similar composition that they ran that operated the same way every single time, just with different champions, or with a pool of champions that couldn't be banned out, so you could kind of rejigger it in order to work. And for those of you who missed it, it's this. They used long-range pick or poke champions, so things like Mid-Kaisa, Ahri, Jace, these kind of champions that could provide damage from a long way away. They would get pick, or they would get or Vex. They would get a long range engage into a side lane, and they would create picks before they went to objectives. Or they would use that poke around an objective and then transition it with a reset champion, change one kill into a team fight win, whether it's Viego or Aurelia or Jinx. These were all champions that they used. And so they could kind of, their win conditions were very similar in every single one of these games. And these were not big, all-in, front-to-back team fighting compositions. They were difficult to execute, but they executed them very well. And they could transition early game pressure and early game advantages into objective wins. But they were still doing things like flipping Barons. Like, watch the fucking finals. I know they had COVID, but they were flipping a lot of Barons in that match against Gen G. Also, the fact that their biggest rival during the season, Gen G, they never played them with Gen G's full roster up until the finals. So their run is a lot less impressive because a lot of teams, the good teams, were weakened when they played T1 and having to use substitute players. So there really wasn't any punishment for T1. And there were very obvious flaws to to how they were playing, especially around mid and late game objectives. And the other issue was, and I got flamed by this, by saying this by people, which is that they have kind of, we don't know if they can play other styles of compositions. And the response people gave me was, oh, of course they can. They're all great players. It's like, so a few things about that. They're all relatively young players. They're all relatively new players. Because they've only played kind of a few different strategies, the champion pools of these players, the known champion pools of these players at the professional level, are actually quite limited.
I'll give you the obvious example. Let's do it. The player that got exposed at this tournament, and by the way, already had his flaws in the spring split, is fucking Gumayusi. This guy, here's why you don't call him a great, like, elite world-class AD carry, because it's totally dependent on champion and how they play around him, mate. He isn't the guy, like a deft, even Uzi at his peak, where, like, you can play all sorts of champions. You don't always 100% have to play through my lane. Like, it looks like you have to sort of, like, here's the problem this guy has. He has, in my opinion, the ultimate cardinal sin as an ADC. He just dies randomly. He just dies randomly. That is so difficult to manage when you are a team where you want your star to be the ADC. That's the guy you need to be really careful, and we got a pilot around the map. This guy will just die randomly.
The irony is that with the changes of 12-10 is that he might actually be better if he's more durable, right? These changes are like potentially quite good for Gumayusi. So maybe T1's fans can be excited about that, because the champions that are most helped by the durability changes were the squishier champions in the first place. So theoretically, he might not die as much. But to your point, that's what the eye test told us from this event, was that he was kind of He was kind of running it in lane. He would randomly die in the mid parts of the game. He is a very good player. He's a great mechanical player. But here's the other thing that nobody talked about. Gumayusi, remember, he was splitting time with Teddy last year. And by the summer, even they kept Teddy on because he was unreliable, right? After they slimmed down the roster, Teddy was still on the roster. And I promise you guys, if Teddy was on this roster, Gumayusi would not have been playing at the end of this tournament. It would have been Teddy. This meta is better for Teddy. This champion pool is better for Teddy. Gumayusi, here are just stats, and I mentioned this on the jungle for you guys. He has fewer than 150 games played as a professional player, which is a ton if you're in LCS or LEC, because you only play 18 best of ones a split. So you play 36 regular games a year. And then you play, maybe if you kind of like drag it out through the double elimination playoffs, maybe you play like 18 more games in playoffs. But if you're playing 2 best of 3s a week, you're basically getting, double to triple the number of reps. So, and of course, like Gumayushi's going to Worlds, he's going to MSI, he's a lot more international games as well in order to count to this. So right there, he's played 148 games, okay? He has only played 4 champions in double-digit games. Those champions are Aphelios, Jinx, Jhin, and Ezreal. Aphelios and Jinx account for 58 of his total games, and he has an 80% win rate on those 2 champions. Very impressive. He has almost a 70% win rate overall. The next 2 that he's played in double-digit games are Jhin and Ezreal, where he has a 53% and then a 54% win rate. Remember, his overall win rate is almost 70%. So he's not very good on these champions. Yep. Okay? Then we go down. Xayah and Caitlyn, both very good. In fact, one of the ways that T1 was able to do so well in spring was they constantly drew Caitlyn bans because Caitlyn was very strong and he's a very good Caitlyn player. The next one is Kai'Sa. He has a 37% win rate on Kai'Sa. Maybe the most important AD carry at the end of this tournament that required bans.
Especially for his opponent.
Surprise, it's Gala's specialty. Gala has it's his most played champion of all time. He's got like a 70% win rate on Kai'Sa. He's incredible. He's probably the best Kai'Sa player in the world. Straight up. So, this is not good for Gumayusi. He's really been playing and specialized in late game long range hyper carries. And that was awesome for the spring split meta. It is not awesome for MSI when a lot of more poke-oriented champions like Xayah, which was taken away from him during these finals. The Ezreal and the Kai'Sa, he is kind of bad at. I mean, we saw him play Ezreal at this event. It didn't look particularly good. His Jhin is not amazing either. And so he defaulted to playing a Jinx that was nerfed in the laning phase, that was harder to get through the laning phase. Now, did they do that very well? Yes, they did. In fact, I think that was one of the great triumphs of T1 in this final, was playing 2 Jinx games where Gumayusi didn't die in either game, which is when he's been doing badly in the laning phase, guys, for him to get a champion that is now much harder to survive in the laning phase because of base HP nerfs into the later stages of the game is great. You also have to look at what they were doing with Korea during this spring split. So much Tahm Kench, so much Thresh. These were champions that were designed to save Gumayusi from himself a lot of the time. And you saw how good Korea's Tahm Kench is in these finals. He is probably, again, the best Tahm Kench player in the world. He will save people at exactly the right time. He will eat his teammates to reposition them into the back line, get them access. He is an incredible team fighter on Tahm Kench. And so his activity on this champion and his skill on this champion was the reason that they kind of took 2 games in this series.
Don't know what depressed me about this series?
What?
When they put him on Yuumi in game 5, the best player in the world is playing Yuumi. In game 5.
Here's the thing.
What's he gonna do? There's nothing. It's not a champion.
I don't know why the Korean teams have been doing this. Remember the game 5 of last year's World Finals? Why did I have to watch Canyon play Trundle?
I know.
What is going on with you Korean teams? It's like, should we put our best star player, MVP player, on a champion where they can be active and show off their skill and carry the game. Nope, Yuumi it is. It's like, and then he plays Yuumi obviously extremely badly and dies at the very beginning of the game and basically like throws the whole game. So it's like it didn't even get to the scaling part because he played like fucking garbage into Rakan and just randomly died in lane. And then Faker was also randomly dying in lane. But it's also the hubris and the priorities of these picks was fucking wild. Like in this series, again, Lissandra and Ahri, right? This is a matchup that occurred several times in this tournament. Lissandra had a 100% win rate into Ahri at MSI. 5 out of 5 games, including, and Xiaohu, had a 100% win rate on Lissandra for the 4 games that he played. And Faker even played Lissandra 1 game and won that game into the Ahri. So why are we going with this Ahri priority when Lissandra is up? Like, sure, you can take Ahri, but you're also on red side. You can if they're going to first pick Gwen, which also Gwen should have been banned, fucking obviously, right? We'll get into the top lane.
After the first couple of games, come on.
Okay, so we'll get into the Zeus shit in a minute, because that's another thing where people have way too many expectations about Zeus's experience, just like they had way too many expectations that Gumayushi could be good on every fucking AD carry in the game. So let's roll it back. If you're going to be in this final game, okay, so if you give over the Gwen, they're going to first pick the Gwen. So they first pick the Gwen, right? Cool. Well, in theory, we have a counter pick now on red side to the top lane. When you already have that in your back pocket, what this means is you have last pick in this draft. You do not have to pick the Ahri immediately, right? You could, in theory, pick the Ahri later in the draft and ban the Lissandra later so you don't have to play into it. These are things that you can do. It's not mandatory that you take it away. And indeed, if they pick the Ahri, then you pick the Lissandra. Like, if their draft is going to be Gwen, then you pick 2 champions, then they go back and pick 2 champions, right? And you see the Ahri come out, then you just pick the Lissandra before they can ban it.
It's why the angle of the side selection can't be it, Monty, because T1 themselves didn't even respond with the same counters. Like, they didn't pick the same champions in the same positions when they were in that spot. So, like, that only works as a first-order excuse. It doesn't work beyond this, because, like, put it this way, we've already nailed 2 roles that they don't even pick the champions for. They can't pick Kai'Sa for Gumayusi, and they cannot pick Gwen for Zeus. And then now
they can pick Gwen for Zeus. They just don't.
But
they gave it up because it was going to be first.
And then Faker doesn't even play the other sides of these matchups, even though in theory he should be able to. So what it shows as well as this, which is, I don't know, I think T1 genuinely, I think it's hubris, like you say. I think they genuinely believed that they just knew best what to play. Because the RNG just looks like RNG just drafted 2 RNG strengths. That's what I like about them as a team. I don't know what the fuck T1 were doing. Some sort of like 200 IQ big brain shit.
Yeah, and it was a return to comfort in many ways. So let's roll back and talk about Zeus, because it's actually very important to talk about game 1 of this series, because game 1, I think, showed a lot of T1's mentality. And I didn't have an issue. I actually think T1 played out the early game of game 1 beautifully, and I think it really showed their strengths. This is a poke comp that they're running. And what they did was they said, we are going to try this composition that they haven't played anything like this previously at MSI, because, it's a risk. It is a risk to play this kind of, because they're very fragile. And if you misplay this kind of composition, you will get rolled, as we saw. Now, what did they do in the early game? They put on a lot of pressure. They kept eyes on Wei. They were actually doing a really good job of pressuring cross map, and the entire thing they were doing was playing for plate gold. And so when they would identify where RNG was applying pressure or where the jungler was, they would hard push on the opposite side of the map, get a couple plates, and then retreat. So it was kind of like guerrilla warfare, just like, popping out, like doing some damage onto the towers, then running back away, right? Very, very safely. Now, they accrue a very large lead. Now, the problem with this is you're not fighting dragons during this time period, so, okay, you let them get a couple dragons early, but this means that you must execute your gold lead with the poke composition accurately and well into the stages of the game to prevent the dragon soul from happening, because that can crush you. Now, if you think about the composition that RNG was running, it's like 4 melee champs and a fucking Tristana. Like, if you do good vision control,
this is the dream for the poke comp.
Yeah, exactly. If you do good vision control, You have a Nocturne to counter engage. You have an Azir ult to counter engage. You have a Morgana ult to counter engage. You have an incredibly strong lane in Caitlyn Morgana to push early on. You have so much counter engage. If you control vision and you don't let them get a flank on you, and you're patient and you make sure that you poke them the fuck out before you start objectives and you do proper objective control, this is really very difficult for RNG to play against. However, what do? Well, they don't do that. Gwen gets a flank on them, gets into their back line, absolutely murders them. That should not be possible, guys. That should not be possible if you're playing objectives properly with good patience and good skill in this game. We can criticize some of the itemization choices as well, like Owner going Gore Drinker on the Nocturne. It's like, what the fuck? This Nocturne is never going to have an offensive ult. He's going to turn out the lights when they try and engage, and then you're just going to disengage with him. So you want him to be tanky, actually. Like, I think they thought maybe, like, they would poke them, and then, like, Nocturne would, like, counter-engage, like, get into the back line and kill somebody quickly who's been poked. But I think that's just kind of ridiculous. It sounds good, but I don't think it's actually practical. So I would have rather have seen different itemization onto Owner, but I don't think that won or lost the game. I think they won or lost the game because then they played super bad around objectives. Then it forced them into a situation where they had to rush a Baron, and then you're like playing in a Baron pit with fucking Xiaohu's Galio, and Xiaohu might be the best Galio player in the whole fucking world. So led to Galio bans later, even though it was really T1's misplays that caused the Galio to be good rather than Galio actually being good. So yeah, I think like this is an instance where I don't think they were particularly rattled by this. I think they thought, okay, if we can win with this, then we're going to be doing well. But I don't think that was a reasonable expectation because they spent the entire tournament throwing at mid-game objectives, which I was just sitting there. I was, doing the watch party on this channel with the base, and I'm like, well, this sure looks good now. This is what I expect. But as soon as we get to these dragon fights, as soon as we get to these Baron fights, let's see if they can execute this. They can't. And that is an arrogant misread on how your team is realistically doing at this event and what their skills are. That composition is very difficult to execute in the mid and late game. It is ridiculously powerful when well executed, but if you fuck up, the game is over. And the game was over. So I was really disappointed, I guess, that they would even try that. And then we go into game 2 and they immediately just like 180, just switch gears. And they're like, okay, we're playing the Jinx Tahm Kench. I was much more interested in this game in particular. Faker is the first one to play the Lissandra Ahri versus into Ahri in this series, right? The other way around. So this is the first time the Lissandra Ahri matchup. No, that's right. Sorry. It was the first like Lissandra into Ahri matchup. Faker opted into it, right? They gave up the Ahri, and then they opt into the Lissandra matchup, which says that they're confident in it. Why they were picking the Ahri throughout the series later on is a mystery. And then you get a much more front to back late game scaling team fight composition. People will point out that they almost threw at Baron, but guys, if you're being honest, they lost a couple of people, but RNG was incredibly low, had to do a desperation Baron, and there's a fucking Jinx that's going to get 1 million resets once the rocket starts going off in the pit. There was very little danger there. Yes. I like how people were like, oh my God, Faker ult in that pit. It's like, it wasn't that impressive. Faker did much more impressive things in this series. And also like, the setup for Gumayushi was already there by them being clustered in a Baron pit and him being fed. So it's like the Danny thing, right? Danny got an amazing pentakill, but realistically, most of those people were going to die simply because he was a late game Jinx, right? As long as he didn't super fuck up.
Here's a question for you. So after game 1, why is it that it became a meme? You know that meme where in the background a guy's looking at a clock and every single hour is the same time? And obviously the joke is it's all going Wukong time. No matter what the coach is, like they've drafted this, Wukong, that's the answer, Wukong. Like, why is Wukong the answer to everything? He's supposed to be like the best jungler in the world, buddy. What the fuck's going on?
No, I mean, he's extremely good. He's extremely good.
Answer to everything though.
He's extremely good right now. So I don't blame T1 for like having the like first pick Wukong priority. I think it does give you pretty substantial advantages again into the mid and late game, and the kind of AoE team fighting that he brings to a composition is really strong. I think if you look at game 3, the problem is that the level 3 invade by Wei onto Wukong just ended up being a complete fucking disaster for T1. And then they threw at Herald, even though they had a 5v4 advantage on that side of the map because Faker was in lane and then showed up late with no mana.
Because here's my problem. The two players going into this final, you're supposed to say are going to have a hard time against T1 are bloody bid and way. And instead, T1 made them look amazing, mate. They made them look like they are sick players.
Well, I think again, we run into, like, to talk about Zeus, like, let's talk about Zeus in the same way we talked about Gumayushi. Again, I bring up these stats on the jungle as well, but I do so, again, here because they're incredibly relevant. So, first off, Zeus is not a rookie. I don't understand where this fucking fan narrative came around where it's like, oh, well, Zeus is a rookie and he's so impressive. It's like, he's not. He played in spring 2021. Then he was put on the academy roster in favor of Kana once they trimmed down the team. So he's not. He played quite a few games, actually, in spring of 2021. Then Kana leaves the team. They decide Zeus is going to be the replacement. Is Zeus a great player? Yeah, he's really impressive. But he's played, again, fewer than 100 games. Of those fewer than 100 games, he's played 93 games. He has 3 champions in the double digits in the top lane. They are Jace, which he played overwhelmingly in the spring split, by the way, because they constantly were able to get Jace. Then he's played Gwen. Then he's played Gnar. Every other champion he's played is single digits. So the Jace picks, even though
Jace question, where the fuck's the Gwen? Where is the Gwen?
Well, you can't first pick the Gwen when you're on red side, and that's what RNG is going to do, right? But Bin has been kind of suspect this entire tournament.
Yes, for sure.
So, but here's the answer, Thorin, is that they egoed and they thought, and at least in game 1, the Jace did win lane very hard against the Gwen. And if you execute that composition properly, the problem is you cannot execute these poke comps into RNG. And so taking it in game 5, even though game 5 was definitely not his fault, by the way, that they thought the answer was, let's just win lane super hard against the Gwen, get a big top lane gold advantage, and then we're going to do well. So I don't think the Jace was overwhelmingly the problem, but the problem here is that nobody, as far as I know, nobody but me has brought this up. Why can't Zeus play Ornn? He has He has 0 professional games on Ornn. Now, he had 0 games on Gangplank coming into MSI. He had never played Gangplank before coming into this tournament. But how come he cannot play Ornn, which you would think would be a very good pick? If you go back to game 3 of EG versus RNG, the game that RNG almost threw, a lot of that was because Ornn is really fucking powerful in the late game, even if you're 10,000 gold behind like EG is. So what is it about Ornn that is so impossible for Zeus to play? Because if I'm watching that series and I'm T1, I'm like, wow, these guys almost threw a game when they were 10,000 gold behind. Ornn sure is powerful in the late game and maybe can, because of all the free gold he gives and because of his AoE crowd control, maybe that's a way, even if we're worse at objectives, to kind of just be good at them. Which is definitely true of EG. So, like, where was this pick? You should have banned Gwen, obviously, but also, like, why would you ban Nautilus in game 5 instead of Gwen? Like, I don't know. I do not understand that whatsoever. The Viego, I get a little bit more because he is providing, Wei was very good throughout this series and he was providing a lot of.
I want them to play it though. Why didn't fucking Owner play some Viego? He's a monster.
I mean, there's a lot of things. Here's another one. Here's another big question, Thorin. Why are they banning Galio when they showed versus G2 that they'll play Tristana mid as a Galio counter?
Doesn't really make any sense at all, does it? Especially because if you brought it out
when they came out in game 1 with Tristana versus G2, I said to myself, the intention behind this pick in a game 1 of a series, if they see the Galio, is to show RNG that they can play this. And to try and make sure that RNG know, Xiaohu's a great Galio player, who love playing Galio, that this is what could happen to them in the finals. Did they do it? No. Instead, they just banned. Again, Galio was not the reason they lost, but they banned Galio. Oh, well, I guess we didn't run the Tristana counter for God knows what reason.
Like, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, true. Especially because remember, he is an ADC champion in this meta, so you can, even if you get the respect for it, you can even flex it in the draft at that point in time. You can just play mind games with them. The problem is, Monty, that game was obviously scripted by the Lost writers, where, if you know the way they used to write the show, they would just put in things that were like threads that were left unresolved, and then years later you'd be like, what's going to happen with that thing there? And then they were sort of like, oh, we forgot all about that. That was a different guy years ago who wrote that. And you're like, what the fuck? You said that was going to be picked up.
But this is what is mind-blowing about these drafts and like complaining about the red side if you're T1 or saying that blue side has an advantage is that if you're looking at these drafts and what is actually happening in them, you see things like, you actually have the final, you're able to actually, counteract some of these bans. And if RNG is going to ban GP, just ban the Gwen and play some fucking Ornn. Like, what are you gonna do? Like play Aatrox into you? Who cares? Who fucking cares? So I would have just taken both of those champions out of the pool. I think we saw what happens when Bin is not on one of those two champions. That is, he plays Hail of Blades, Trinity Force, Gnar, and just runs it down into a GP. Like he played horribly in that game. How can you see that in the finals and go into game 5 and be like, we sure should let him have one of these two champions? And even like RNG banned GP when they were on blue side in game 5. If you see that, just ban the fucking, what is so great about Nautilus? So yeah, I just don't get it. I do not understand like why their kind of like ban strategy was so bad.
I will say though, shout out T1 for being such bros, just like Damwon last year, that you've made Worlds way more exciting. Because if Damwon last year or T1 this year had really stomped MSI, the story would be the #1 team in Korea is the #1 in the world. The LPL has to get shit together. Instead, we've got the same great storyline coming into Worlds, which is there's loads of other really sick LPL teams. Let's see how they match up. Yep. The best Korean team's already failed once. Will they get it together? Like, it's actually set up for a great Worlds.
I mean, at least there's Damwon with Nuguri back, right? So like that's actually pretty hype too. So, I don't have a lot of hope for Gen G when it comes to being able to beat a top 3 Chinese or T1, or even Damwon at this point in time. But I think Damwon could definitely compete if Nuguri's in form. But what's so confusing, Thorin, is like you look at game 4 of this series, RNG's on red side. What do they ban? Lucian, Gwen, GP. Literally, why doesn't T1 do exactly that? It's a mystery. It's a total fucking mystery. I mean, T1 won that game, but it was like Bin on Camille, right? And like Zeus showed that he is better on non-GP and Gwen champs. I mean, he's good at both of those champs, but beyond those champs, like he's good at other things, and Bin was like a point of weakness. So incredibly confusing. And then again, going back to the Yuumi pick, I don't actually hate T1's composition. I just don't think that I don't think the right decision is in the 2 wins you have, having Keria be very active on the map, be very present in these team fights, have a lot of individual agency. I don't think the answer is to put him on a reactive champion like Yuumi, just like I didn't think the answer to the World Finals was putting Canyon on Trundle in game 5. Like, let Keria fuck. You know what I mean? Like, let Keria fuck. Putting him on Yuumi is ridiculous.
That's a chastity belt, if anything. Throw away the key. Exactly. No, I agree, because basically, as a general rule, when it's like game 5, the game plan can easily go out the window at that point. You just want your best player to be capable of doing things and have an agency and winning the game for you in unexpected circumstances. Spoiler, Yuumi is the exact opposite of that, obviously, by definition, isn't it? You need everything to go right, and then the joke is even then he's just pressing... Yuumi's like the fucking monkeys pressing buttons.
I mean, Riot even made Yuumi a pussy champ. Like that's just it. So let's just look at it. Don't play it if you're the best support player. They're the reigning MVP of the league.
Especially when, yes, Thresh was absolutely available to be picked at any moment in time, has insane kit, always will, and if you have the best team, you will win the game. So there's that.
I mean, as far as activating your stars and allowing them to win or lose a game, it's the same shit you see in traditional sports. It's like, it's like what happened with Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers a couple of years ago in the playoffs, where they just like wouldn't let Aaron Rodgers play on a crucial fourth down play in the playoffs. It's like, no, you fucking have Aaron Rodgers. Like, let him make the play. Like, live or die by Aaron Rodgers at that moment. Don't get cute, and don't get cute with Korea in these situations when he is one of the main reasons you won the 2 games that you have won already.
This brings up an obvious question no one else has thought about, though, Monty, which is indeed about the coaching staff. remember, your angle last year was basically low-key. Faker was just the coach, wasn't he? He just was the puppet, and then whoever the fucking Davey
that's
guy
still
was,
true, by the way.
I mean, it probably is. But that's one of the issues I have, because I'll tell you what, one of the things that is a real storyline in the LPL is when you look at one of the things that leveled the LPL up, it wasn't just imports, blah, blah, blah. Like, part of it was like their coaching staff seems over the last few years have gotten a lot better. Like, here's the thing. I told you, I get the same vibes from RNG I do from EG. Their coaching staff know their personnel and draft for their personnel. Now, listen, doesn't mean you'll win, but I tell you what, gives them a great bloody chance.
Yeah. I think, if I look at this Jace pick, it just feels like a pick that says is like, I'm going to stomp this guy in lane. But you have to know the limitations of your team. And even if you were an excellent Jace team, you were an excellent Jace team for different reasons during the regular season. Like when it comes to 5 versus 5 all-in team fighting, like a weakened Jace is not going to do you a lot of favors on the patch that MSI was played on. So
those are also, by the way, in draft famous last words. When they pick a strong champion that's supposed to be OP, it's when your player goes, "It's all right, we can handle this." Those are like the famous last words in draft. For so many times, exactly. I know, because as soon as your player says that, you go, "Fucking hell, he better deliver." Like, because those stories end badly so many times. Look, if it works, it's a great story. Wow, and he did handle it. You can't believe it. He got the counter, but the one time it doesn't, you look like an idiot. Unfortunately.
Yeah, sometimes it's pawn game 5 mid Morgana MSI winning versus Faker's undefeated LeBlanc, and other times it's like, well, we tried this earlier, and even when we got a lead, we as a team failed to execute on it, and that might not be your fault, Zayas, but like we need to approach this from a team strategy perspective and find a different solution, or just fucking ban the Gwen, like just please just ban the Gwen, just ban Gwen and GP, and just Zayas, you're better than Bin. Just beat him in a different matchup. Like, come on. It's very confusing. Very confusing. So, I mean, I would say that this was in many ways just, let me put it differently. I don't think this is a draft fail by T1. I think the selections that they did made sense, and you could see, not in game 5 because they just played it super badly. But in theory, their lead in game 1 should have snowballed into a win if everything was executed properly. So the theory behind their drafts isn't necessarily bad, but you have to take into account the human beings who are playing this and how they operate collectively, which is why I think T1 just overestimated their own abilities, whereas I think RNG was just ruthlessly practical with their own abilities. It's like, we are going to first pick Gwen. This is what we're going to do because we have to shore up X weaknesses. We're going to put Xiaohu and get him to roam or get him to neutralize problematic champions with Lissandra and play this matchup that we really like and has a 100% win rate at MSI overall. So, I mean, well played RNG's coaching staff, but I think that T1 made it just unbelievably difficult on themselves for no real reason.
And by the way, since I want to spin like some positive out of this, what I'll say is this: what a fucking legendary career Xiaohu has now had.
Sure.
Please think about who he's going against when he wins these games. Remember, he never gets lucky and like EU upsets the Korean team, then he gets to play the EU team. He has to go straight through the face of motherfucking dominant Korean teams who are considered the de facto best team in the world when he plays them. So think about the first time when he won, when it was RNG, back when it was Kingzone. He's playing against BDD, the guy who just stacks MVP awards in Korea. Then you come to when he was top lane last year. He's just playing against Khan, one of the best top laners to ever come out of the Korean region. And again, on the team that everyone says is #1 in the world. And then this time around, he just goes against Faker as well, and the #1 team in the world again. Like, fucking hell, this guy's career is unreal. Like, this guy is going to retire as one of the most underrated players of all time. Like I said, to me, he is just like the Chinese Perks, mate. Because when I watch him, he isn't just like the mechanical monster stomping everyone. It's like, it reminds me back in the day of how I used to contrast Insec and Diamond Procs. Insec, everything he did was just mechanically perfect. Diamond Procs, you just never noticed his mechanics because it's like they never became a factor. He was always just smooth, could do it. He was never going the fastest. He was just doing it just good enough where everything was executed and his game plan won the game, didn't it? His brain can just take over at that point. Xiaohu's like that. He's definitely not a bad laner, but he doesn't have to be a monster. This guy just fucking knows how to win in League of Legends. It's amazing. I actually love watching players like that because I can sort of see them doing the Rubik's Cube as the game goes on. It's sick.
Well, he also knows the tools that he has and how good Gala and Ming are, and if he
use his teammates as well. Exactly.
Yeah, if he plays a low economy style and he plays in a certain way that can activate the powers of his teammates, like if Gala gets fed, Gala's one of the best AD carries in the world. He's going to be a monster in the late game, and he can adapt to the meta. And he, when he was a top laner, he can be surprising and play things like Syndra top, like we saw. So he uses, he knows what his toolbox is, and he uses all of those tools extremely efficiently.
And also props for winning all these bloody championships without any Koreans. What a fucking G. You can't even diss that. That's just amazing, isn't it? Respect.
Yeah. I mean, certainly, I think a lot more will be said about Xiaohu's career, especially after going top, doing well, then coming back to mid lane and winning this MSI, right? It's so
impressive. It's mental in itself. Is. Yeah, I know. That's bonkers, boys. Especially
when he did as well as he did last year with Cryan, who was horrible on his team. So the hard carry was real. The hard carry. I'm happy to see him back in mid, but that was rough to watch. But yeah, I mean, I think T1 really, these were all the danger signs that everybody in the scene with a brain was saying before coming into MSI is there are caveats on the undefeated season that T1 had because of COVID. There are big questions about their champion pool and strategic diversity because of how we saw them play. And also, it's not like all of their wins were flawless. They played some really nasty, messy coin flip games and, frankly got lucky, to kind of come out undefeated. And you saw that again in the finals, even though I did think they played worse because they had COVID, right? I don't think that was the shining example of T1's play throughout the season. I think they played better in earlier parts of the playoffs. But there were a lot of warning signs, and many experts in the scene, including people on this show, were telling you, this is a good team, but this is not some unstoppable juggernaut that's going to be coming into MSI that is guaranteed to win this whole thing. RNG has some very good strengths in the late game. And when you think about T1 being weaker in that phase of the game, there are going to be situations where RNG could win. And I think it was hard to call the finals because both teams were coming in pretty strong. And RNG did shore up some of their early game weaknesses that we saw.
The other thing I would say is just this. Even though it's a familiar refrain, I'll say it again. I don't want to watch tournaments where 85% of the tournament is just a bunch of Bobkiss pointless shit where it's just do they lose a random BO1 to Vietnam or something? And then at the end, there's 3 days where in theory it would matter. And because EG was shit, just 2 days. And even the G2 one didn't end up delivering. That can't be enough for a tournament, boys. You have to understand, I don't even for example, if people don't know, because the dev decides the structure of CSGO majors, it's not like CSGO even has the most perfect format. But once I get to the playoffs, I get 7 real series that are largely going to deliver. I'm going to end the tournament on a high. If you notice, the last 2 majors in CSGO, there was even loads of tech problems. No one cared at the end. Because at the end, as long as you get the great playoff games and you get the big match that's good in the final, you can leave on a high. This one, I felt like someone starved for sustenance, and finally in a food desert, I found one half-eaten fucking hoagie that there's a bit of sauce left in this, bloody hell. Then there's this fucking side selection game. What is this shit? Can't end the tournament like this. This is MSI. What is it? It's nothing.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually gotten so bad, Thorin. Here's something that will make you mauled like a motherfucker. People in the scene are actually suggesting, because the CSGO major was happening concurrently with MSI, so it was fresh in people's minds, people are legitimately saying that MSI should switch to a Swiss system.
That's basically, if people don't know how we ended up with Swiss in CSGO, what happened was people got so sick of one format, they were try anything. And then we just brought that in. Even though I think, by the way, it has some upsides, but I don't think it would fix most of these problems.
So Swiss is better. It is better than what we have at MSI, but there are still really serious issues with the Swiss system.
Seeding would already fuck it, for example.
Yeah, I mean, seeding is less of an issue because there are so many terrible teams at MSI. It's not there's only 2 good teams at MSI. Right. maybe 3 in any given year, right? So I think the seeding issue is maybe less pronounced when you don't have as competitive, like as evenly matched a field. But yeah, I mean, I would prefer that than the current format of MSI. But I think the truth is just in the numbers, guys, that we saw from this event. Remember, we talked about on this show, the group stage of this tournament, viewership was down 37% on non-Chinese streams this year. And of course, people are telling me, Monty, no, that's because it's in a bad time zone for the West. Guys,
I mean, like half the world's in MSIs ever.
Yeah, and also
loads of them in these Asian countries.
Let me make this very clear to you guys. English-speaking League of Legends viewership is the fucking minority.
Awesome.
If you want to maximize viewership, you put the tournament in Asia, where most of the viewers are. Okay, so like, let's just get that one out of the way. Putting it in a bad time zone for Asia is actually how you get the worst viewership. Okay. So I didn't say viewership is down 37% on English streams. I said all viewership, including all non-Chinese viewership, Korean viewership. By the way, the Korean language stream peaked higher than the English stream at this event. So there were more Korean language viewers than there were English viewers. Makes sense. Obviously, T1's in the final. And then, okay, let's fast forward. What happens to T1 versus RNG, the finals? Oh, it's the most viewed ever on trackable streams. 2.1 million concurrent viewers. So what does this say about this event? Well, people are still very excited about T1 versus RNG. They like good matchups. People are not interested in the minor regions. And it's not, even the minor regions. Last year, for this same format, the Brazilian games were the most watched games, some of the most watched games at the MSI in the group stage. Not this time around, right? Like, people saw it once, and it's boring to watch these teams get absolutely destroyed. And by the way, if it was true that it was because of a bad time zone for Western viewers, why did it break viewership records when it was held at 1 a.m.? The finals were held at 1 a.m. in California and 4 a.m. on the East Coast. How did they break that viewership record? If that's the reason why viewership was down in the early stages of this tournament, doesn't make any sense, does it? Think about things before you tweet at me or make comments on YouTube. Viewership, good, very good. Record-breaking for finals. Very bad for early stages of this tournament. So there isn't even a business reason to do this anymore. It's not like the minor regions are showing up in droves to watch their teams get absolutely smashed.
It's actually more of a reason why you'd want the double elim, because you get more of the games people want to see. Like, spoiler, if RNG and T1 meet in the upper bracket final, that'll already be the #1 viewed thing. And then the grand final will be even more, won't it?
Yeah, I am fucking sick of these devs because they want to sell more Ari skins in Turkey, making formats that suck for people who want to watch this as a sport.
Yes.
It is embarrassing, guys. Like, if the Turkish team is good, then they can compete their way into a reasonable tournament format where they can actually participate in a way that doesn't allow them just to get smashed. And here's the other thing that tilts me so hard. People are like, well, Monty, the World Cup in soccer is a lot of smashes. First off, the World Cup is a fucking horrible format. And people are like, oh, it's the most watched sport event in the world. We actually don't know what viewership for the World Cup would be like if it was a good format, because it's never had a good format. It's like the same thing with League of Legends. Like, League of Legends is the most watched esport in the world. The conversion rate on the player base is extremely bad. For 100 million players, to get 2.1 million peak players, 2% of your active player base watching a final of MSI is terrible conversion. Now, how do we know that esports viewership wouldn't be higher if they didn't use dog shit formats all the time? Like, we don't know that, right?
Yeah, by the way, I actually think the Champions League, if it was double elim, would be even more popular. I think it would be fabulously popular, mate. People would love to watch that if it was double elim. Yeah, and also, I'll throw this in. The reason why the World Cup is almost on the surface the most bad faith argument you can ever make goes like this. When people support for the World Cup, Monty, it's like that famous thing where, there's women who don't follow the NFL. They're not interested in American football, but they'll watch the Super Bowl because it's a cultural event. People are going to talk about the adverts. That's what happens for the World Cup. You get all these people in England who don't follow football. They don't watch even the English team when they play the friendlies and the qualifier. They watch the World Cup for national and patriotic reasons. That doesn't exist in esports except for China and Korea. Like, the joke is, and we've made this point a million times, you cocksuckers in America keep saying you want American players, and if someone puts a bunch of American players in but doesn't win, you all fucking watch. You go, boo, Golden Guardians, boo! You're all fucking liars. The joke is, like, people will watch the World Cup no matter what. It doesn't matter how bad their team is. If their team qualifies, they will watch. That doesn't exist in esports, so they have like an inherent advantage we don't have, built up over hundreds of years.
And also due to stupid nationalism reasons. But no, people don't watch the World Cup because it's the best soccer, guys.
Oh, of course
the best soccer occurs on the professional team that have higher concentrations of star players, actual synergy because they practice together more frequently, they compete more frequently. The
Champions
League is 1 gazillion times better, right, than the World Cup is in terms of if you care about quality soccer being played. So there's not even that excuse. Like, you're actually just watching an inferior version of the sport because people want to wave a fucking flag around. So don't come at me with your crappy World Cup examples and say that this is a good system. We could probably fix a lot of the World Cup, even the World Cup's problems if we wanted to, but FIFA doesn't want that to happen. So anyway, this is all to say that the viewership was down in the bad parts of this tournament. It was up in the good parts of this tournament. Can we please just have an actual format that reflects what demonstrably people want to watch within this game? And it goes back to that same argument. Is this a sport or is this a marketing exercise? Which also was the underpinning of the issue with the ping and the remote play. Is this a sport or do you just want as many viewers as possible? Because without RNG, it's not very competitive because you have a bad format where if one team doesn't show up, then the format is fucked and the tournament is fucked. That's just inventing a bad format. And then also you have to have these Chinese viewers who tune in. Otherwise, your viewership goes down by 80%.
Yeah, by the way, there's two other things to say as well about why League of Legends is in a different position than other sports and other esports. I'll give you an example. In CSGO at the major, one of the big deals that they kept going on and on about in the crowd was that the fan bases of teams, some of them that didn't even make the playoffs, Monty, still came to the arena and celebrated and cheered even though their teams weren't playing. Spoiler, it's famous that when the Chinese lose, they don't even bloody cheer for the other team to win. Like, they're not there to watch the game. They're there watch China win. Spoiler, the Koreans, if you got the vibe there, it was a bloody library, wasn't it? They were there to watch Korea win. These are very different. Like, CSGO's a different game, and CSGO people like the game. They just watch the match. If it's a great match, a great match. By the way, one thing I'll say, just to trigger the plebs out there, you know how it got really uncomfortable? And the moment me and Monty veered into talking about soccer/European football, you had that sort of hair come up from the back of your neck, and you thought, wait a minute, these guys are talking about an area they're not experts in. They don't know everything I know about that. I've watched football. That's how we feel when you give your comments about League of Legends, you fucking idiot. You're just a moron who plays Blitzcrank and just watched 10 games of TSM and went, I think they should draft on. Like, that's you. That's how we feel. You know, when you go, stick to your lane. Stick to shutting the fuck up. You're not an expert at anything. Right, there we go. I've triggered the fans. Oh, that's off. Was it me that got triggered in the end, fans? Who knows? You decide.
Very relevant.
You decide. Get off my chest.
And here's the thing, guys. I am, by the way, this is just true. I am one of the foremost esports format experts in the fucking world. Okay. Like, I pay so much attention to formats over, 20, 25 years of esports history. And I pay attention to sports formats too, because I really fucking care about formats. Like, it's a passion of mine. It's dumb, but that's why you always hear me talk about formats so much on this show. So I have dedicated a decent chunk of my life to looking at sports formats and thinking about sports formats and seeing what's innovative in different fields and how we can work this and what it is about the game and how it applies. So, this is actually a pretty big area of expertise, and you should fucking listen instead of just telling me, what about no bracket reset? Isn't that an unfair advantage? Which is still the dumbest shit that I ever hear.
Most of the replies in esports could be sorted out by a bloody FAQ. That's how bad they are. Like you say, that's like the most level 1 fucking reply. What about a bracket reset? So you mean you've never watched one of these tournaments ever? You're just now speculating about what? Again, you're like League. Oh, well, imagine what if we did have this so-called double eliminate? We have already had it for 20 years. You fucking got just go and watch them. We used it the whole time.
It's also, we need a nephew training video where it's like, you will, nephew, welcome to esports. You will, at some point in time, find yourself thinking, what if there wasn't a bracket reset in double elimination. Now, this is natural, but also debased and morally wrong, and here is why.
Stop him looking like a fool. Exactly. Help him. Just get ahead of the problem. Just get ahead of the problem.
Just have the nephew training course, eliminate all mistakes over time. You know, it actually would be hilarious. It's like one of those like 1950s style workplace training videos from like American factories back in the day.
Yeah.
Would actually be very hilarious to
basically in the vein of those videos like Fallout, where they're like, where was the world before the bomb went off? Where like explain all that shit. Here's what I think we do. We do a little quick break, come back, do some viewer questions.
Yeah, sounds good.
Or to break. Right. Obviously, I will again mention, because this whole show, key distinction, was all sponsored by eSportsBet. Watch out, that won't be the case for every single episode. And being as it is sponsored by eSportsBet, they have a deposit bonus they have kindly granted to us if you use our referral link, which is you get a 50% deposit bonus on up to $200. Obviously, that will tie in, as I said, to the previous thing, where they also will then give you 50x times whatever crypto you put in. So in this particular case, obviously, well, depending on how much you put in, but you could obviously get a bunch of the DJT. We referenced that earlier, right? Obviously, we have the GROGcoin for people who support our channel and especially want to ask questions, because the main function of the GROGcoin at this point in time is just to get in the pool and in the little channel and just go where you can ask the questions, which Monty will now select some from for us to answer.
That's right. So it's our turn. We spent a minute or two to come up with your own Butt Pounder 420 homage names. Anal Devastator. There you go. There's one for you. That's a very graphic one.
Okay.
You have one?
That was the question we had to come up with.
Yeah.
Probably like Bomb Chanterer or something. Pretty good.
There you go.
I think a bit British on that.
What is your favorite pro player analyst bumper that Thorin has used to intro or outro a video? I don't know if I've seen everyone. So
just a reminder, one you remember, any funny ones you remember?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I mean, I've seen so many of them at this point in time. What do you have?
Give you an example. I did one recently where I filmed myself walking near a bunch of geese, and I say boo to them because I'm actually not a coward like fans. I will say boo to a goose, and then I explain how GamerSups allows me to do that. It's a whole thing, Monty. There's a whole theme I'm working with there.
I like some of your singing Alpha Draft ones. I like the Doa bumper that is really funny.
Oh, the idents, right? I see what you mean. The Doa one's good, yeah, because the clever thing about the Doa one, what he nailed is, it is weird that Doa would be on my channel, right? Doa is sort of a bit too nice to be on the Thorin channel, so he found like a clever way to insert that I'd trapped him in the closet or whatever the fucking, like his hero R. Kelly.
Jesus.
Although the joke is, R. Kelly might even be someone Dor likes, but the joke would be Dor would like not know about the scandal or something and just be telling people, I just love his music, like, are you sure about that? What do you mean? I think he's got some great old songs, like. I could totally see that.
No one would be caught up on like the last 15 years. He'd be like, remember R. Kelly in the...
And he's like, all right, maybe he did a few things. Now, can we all sit down and watch this Bill Cosby special? Fucking hell, we got the power before these streams.
Once upon a time, there was a promising partnership between Summoning Insight and Cloud9. Is there anything you could publicly say about why the partnership ended? Well, several things.
Drama is what they want there, but okay.
There's really not drama, guys. Like, basically it was... So when we had this studio for Cloud9 and wanted to do something special to get viewership, so we brought Summoning Insight back for 2019 Worlds, and then we continued doing stuff because I was a full-time employee at Cloud9, so it was helping them out with some deliverables. And then when I moved to Flashpoint, I wasn't an employee of Cloud9 anymore. I was an employee of Flashpoint, and so we just went back to doing it independently. It's not very exciting.
I'll just say, because I don't work Cloud9 in any capacity, I don't think they were. That's the problem. I think that they liked the idea of having Summoning Insight. I don't think they fully understood what can come from that just socially. Like, fans might be mad at you, or people might try and be like, well, you're being biased, letting them talk shit onto you. Same problem we've had with every bloody company. So what do you expect? We just do it ourselves now. Problem solved. No problem for Cloud9 then. They can appear on the show if they want. They're not totally associated, and we just do it anyway. It doesn't matter. All worked out.
Yeah. What series / games in League were most heavily influenced by external drama that you know of? I mean, how can I put this? There are almost certainly definitively betting scandals that you guys don't know about, that I can't prove, but I strongly suspect, and there is really a lot of evidence that hints in this direction, especially in the early days of League of Legends. So yeah, there was external drama like that, but I don't have conclusive proof of it. And even if I did, I'm not sure I want to go there.
Here's the thing.
Personally,
Watch this.
That puts me in a certain level of human danger that I don't really want for a video game.
This is unrelated to what Monty's talking about, but I've always thought it was really curious that one of the great upsets of all time happened in League of Legends, and conveniently was to do with the sister team of the World Championship T1 squad losing bizarrely after they'd already won a win a bigger game to allow the faker team to make the playoffs. Now it didn't matter; they got banged out immediately in the playoffs by Samsung White, if you remember. But if you like at the time, like was actually it might have been blue for that one. I can't remember which one, but all I remember that was like, if I took the nameplates off, there's no way that result ever happens, in my opinion. So I think that was essentially, I would speculate something like they were told to lose the game. I don't think it was about to do with betting. I think it was just to do with getting the big names through. But it looked to me sort of like the boxing thing where the guy, you're going down in the 8th round or whatever. It looked a bit like that to me. And obviously at the time, no one could say anything. But if you go back, I've said it all over someone inside. Don't even worry about it. I was all over that shit. That was at the beginning, to be fair. We had just launched the show back then. That was a long time ago.
For specifically mid lane and top
lane. The
lane.
obvious ones for that as well, but we can't talk about it because you have to reveal this. The most obvious examples of what he's talking about is like when someone's girlfriend left them 2 days before a final, or the worst ones, actually, they don't always come public with this, is someone's family member died or something, the mum's in hospital. Those are the ones where sometimes you hear behind the scenes and then you watch the game and you're like, now I know what's happened, but we all have to pretend we can't comment on it, unfortunately.
Yeah. And also, by the way, that's why you often... Sometimes when you're like, wow, that player's played really badly, but they're not going super hard on that player. Sometimes it's because we know this shit, but we're not going to assume that that was the accurate version of that player's form. And we're not going to bang on when we know that there's an external reason that we can't tell you guys, or, I mean, we could, but we're not going to, because we're not pieces of shit. Trying to start, cause more problems for people who are, for the most part, victims of circumstance. For specifically mid and top lane, are there actually weak side and low economy players, or they're simply good and bad players? Is the best carry player strictly better than the best weak side player? There definitely are weak side players.
Basically, they're doing the principle, which I actually learned as a boy. It goes like this. When you're a boy and everyone starts playing football, initially there's no positions. You're just a bunch of kids. In fact, sometimes there's one goal and you all just play and whoever scores. It's like an individual game. But as soon as they start making the team, Monty, that is really how football works. The people who are really good are the attackers and the fucking wingers and the midfielders. The worse you are at the game, you just have to learn to play shit roles like defense, and goalkeeper's obviously the one no one wants to do. So like the premise he's talking about there, I do think that's how fans think of League of Legends. They think that a weak side tank / bruiser top laner is just a shit top laner who's not allowed to play carry champs. They think that the guy who only is allowed to play Misfortune in the fucking ADC role with like a support that can always reposition him, they think he's just a whack ADC and he can't be trusted to play Jinx or Ezreal. Like, here's the problem. On some level, in the most extreme painted with broad strokes, there is a sort of truth to that. But the problem I have with that is it doesn't work when you look at the different levels. Like, for example, if Impact plays the tank in the top lane, he's better than half the carry bloody players in NA, isn't he? Like, so it doesn't. I don't think it quite works. I sort of see where he's coming from, but like I've seen this. There's definitely some specialists that are amazing in League that just are fabulous, even at the weaker aspect of the game. Right?
Doinby got better at League of Legends since his Worlds victory, but he played the exact right style at the exact right time and was, just roaming out of mid lane, right? So, I mean, I think when he won Worlds, sorry, I need to finish that thought. But, I think that certainly at the top end, you're obviously versatility is a core part of being a world-class professional player. But there's also downsides, which is like a lot of, if you're going to play a lot of carry champions in mid or top lane, you often need a lot of resources in order to maximize the kits of these champions and get the items that you need in order to carry these games. And so if that player has a bad game, then you basically have, sunk a lot of resources into this player, or if they're a streaky and they've had, kind of a down spell for a while. And there are a lot of players that just don't require a lot of resources that have extreme consistency. And it really just depends on how you build a team. Like those players you have to acknowledge are not necessarily going to carry you to a title. But if you have other players who have that capacity, then you can just use those resources on those players instead. It's how you allocate farm in the mid and late game, like who gets the lane farm that's, coming towards you, who gets to clean that up and then come with more resources to a team fight. So it is a strategy. And there are good weak side players. I mean, just think about it this way. Both Xiaohu and Faker were low economy mid laners and they met at the finals of this MSI. They just take fewer resources than many of their teammates right now.
I also think the key distinction to add in is this. If you can actually have the mindset and the decision-making of the low econ / weak side player, but you're also really skilled, Oduamne would be an example, you then also become insanely valuable to your team.
Right. And it's like if you have a star player on a basketball team, like there has to be a guy to pass the ball well to that other guy, right? That player is crucial in their own way.
Sure.
What would your dream jobs be within esports and then outside of esports? I mean, I just want to be self-sufficient in esports. Like, frankly, I just, I like making the kind of content that I want to make. So whatever capacity that happens in, whether it's tournaments that I run, whether it's shows like this, whether it's projects that I have total creative control over. I just don't want to work for people. And I'm sick of working for developers on their fucking shitty marketing esports as opposed to caring about the esports as sports, which is what I care about. So I'm happy doing a lot of different things. I enjoy variety. But at the same time, I just it has to be my own shit at this point in my life, basically.
This is how you know people can't actually ever believe you can escape the fucking matrix / machine. I haven't worked for a company since 2014, guys. Like, you are aware of that, right? Like, I've been independent / a contractor for every other company I've worked with, except Flashpoint, which even then I was technically a contractor, but it was just like, It was going to be a rolling contract that would keep going, by the way, in itself. What was going on there? What state was that based in? Never mind, it's dead anyway, who gives a shit. Unfortunately, TSM isn't. But basically, the premise goes like this. I've already done all my bloody dream jobs. Like, the joke is this. When people tell me I'm irrelevant and a loser, mate, just do the top 3 things in my career, like on live American television, fucking burn Shaquille O'Neal to his... Like, we don't have to get 2 in. I've already had a better life than you. That's the peak of your life. That was a fucking Monday for me. So anyway, here's what I want to do now. It's just I want to do things within my current role. Like, for example, I haven't made many documentary type features ever. I'd like to do more of that. I like to do analysis, but I don't like all the bullshit of events. So I want to do it on my stream now that I control. So we're doing all the shit that we dream of doing. That's actually why we're doing this company transition, and why we've made some of the choices we have the last few years. Like, the real joke is this. All the cocksuckers in esports who go, I am living my dream. They aren't. They're living a shit version of their dream. It's why they all lie and go, I get paid to play video games. Then you're looking like, you're the guy who books the flights for a team. What are you talking about, you moron? It's like, they're all just living fake fantasy dream job. We're living our actual dream job.
It's also just, I mean, the fact is that the devs who have monopolies on their esports scene, suppress wages for casters, suppress career opportunities, suppress career development for these people, don't give them long-term contracts, provide them very little stability. So it's like, I don't give a shit if me casting on a Riot stream, which isn't possible, by the way, for obvious reasons. But even if it was, I wouldn't choose it because the audience might be bigger. But the fact is that my content is viewed by millions of people on my shows that I run right now or on the tournaments that I run. And I don't have to do it under the boot heel of a developer who doesn't share my values and doesn't share my vision for the industry. And I can't make the kind of content that I want to make with them. So it doesn't matter that I have a smaller audience. I'm fucking free. Right.
Oh, here's the biggest joke.
I'm free.
Won't give anyone any numbers, but my favourite part about morons who cannot escape the premise of the Matrix, their dream is to be at the top of the Matrix, Monty, is this. They really believe we're also losing money doing this role. They don't know. I've said it before. Put it together. How can I, in my side gig, make more than Jack does as a full-time guy for Riot? How can I, as a journalist, make more than Jacob Wolf does when I don't even do as much? How can I do any of these things? The joke is this. I saw there was a moron in the chat and he goes, yeah, but Simple makes more in a month than you do in a year. You know what, bro? keep that energy. I want everyone to believe that that's true. I just wish the bloody IRS tax guy believed it was true. If he believed it was true, I'd be fucking squared away, wouldn't I? You believe that though, pal? Because if you actually believe that, you know, fuck all about this industry. I know how much Simple makes me.
People are like, and that's the whole thing. People are like, well, you know, Monty really killed his career by getting mad at Riot, leaving League of Legends.
I know.
I've made more money every single year in increasing amounts since I left Riot.
It's actually a secret of the universe. Here's how it works. If you're the person who sells out at the first instance or the second instance or the third instance, listen, this is what's genius about the system. They don't throw money away for nothing. They'll get you at the minimum value they can get you at. And as soon as they get you trapped, they'll give you tiny incremental increases. Every time you say no to the devil, I'm not joking, he comes back with a bag twice as big and goes, what about now? Or he goes, you know what, like I've had maddest ones ever. Remember that story I told you about when Fnatic wanted me to be their coach? And even though I knew it wasn't what I should do, they kept making the deal better and better and better. Like, for example, I was saying excuses like, well, you know, I'm still going to do CSGO events. Well, what if we, you know, sort of factored 4 or 5 of those into the year and we'd give that fucking hell? Like, well, then I wouldn't be able to focus totally with the players. Well, we could tell the players, you have to have a deal. It's like, bloody hell, like at the end, like, are you just going to keep doing this till I say yes to the deal? And spoil, that's how the system works. Because here's what you don't get. The system needs us more than we need the system. The system needs the lifeblood of creative people who are truly passionate and actually do have ideas that aren't just cynically tied to making money, because they need that to then pervert to make money and only care about marketing. And they need to co-opt our integrity. The fact that we have built up a brand that we don't bow to Riot is why, by the way, I've told this story and people still don't get it, Monty, because they're so stupid. Riot Games tried to back channel with me to do Worlds 2 years ago. I have never even done a League of Legends event ever. I have constantly said Riot Games is shit. So why would they come with, checks notes, the best gig you can ever get in League of Legends? Because that's how it works in the system. You don't get it because you're a little pleb. So you just become the regional manager of your McDonald's. I'll be the one saying, no fries for me. I don't need a McDonald's. Sorry, which way is it to the actual good restaurant? Whatever.
It's also, factually, this is it. If you're casting, the show is the game. And you are irrelevant. You can change the caster and people will still watch the game. I want to be the show, guys. And this show, Summoning Insight, is the most watched show in League of Legends. If you count up all the views across all the platforms for this year, it is the most watched League of Legends esports show. Is it the most watched every episode? It's very close. Probably, I think Euphoria probably has some more views at some points in time. But because this is the most consistent show, and because it's not only YouTube, it's live views on Twitch. It's Twitch VOD views. It's our podcasts on like Spotify, which, by the way, we have video now. Go check that out. If you sum total everything, like SI is the biggest show in terms of viewership in League of Legends esports. And you guys come here because you like watching me and Thorin talk and the guests that we bring on and the candor that we have on this show. For me, that's much more fulfilling than being on somebody else's product, right? I've been there. I've done that. I reached the top of the heap. I was the best at what I did. Time for a new challenge. Suppose there's massive advancement in technology and you could live eternally in virtual reality after undergoing a surgery that extracts your brain and connects it to a supercomputer. Would you ever opt into that? Incidentally, isn't being good at esports through a mouse and keyboard control kind of lame if instead you could be godlike with your whole body in full dive VR?
Like, what's hilarious about that is he's made the classic mistake that real humans are going to make in the very near future in the coming decades, which is, you notice within that, he made all these crazy assumptions that the tech works perfectly and nobody has any sinister ulterior motives behind it. Here's why
I can't trap you in a virtual reality world.
This is
basically like being in hell forever, potentially.
Here's why I like to use a mouse. Because you know what the worst thing that happens with a mouse is? Just get stuck on a bit of dirt. I don't get my brain deleted. I don't get my consciousness transformed into a virtual gulag where I'm tortured forever. I do not have any of these problems. Like, spoiler, you know the reason why that question, look, I know he's just doing it as a fantasy scenario of what you could do in the virtual environment. The reason why I would never want that is because to even think that is good or of any value, you actually have to, in my opinion, have totally missed the point of the world you currently live in. The realm you live in is the most magical, incredible place possible. The human imagination, as far as I can tell, is unlimited and has no bounds on it. And you want to leave that and go inside just a really advanced version of a computer program. Like, the joke is, in the future, the mistake of the Matrix is that they had to fight a war and use guns and make us go into the Matrix. You motherfuckers will sign up. You'll pre-order like Yeezys to go into the Matrix and have your brain jacked in. You'll be the one like, no. And the joke is, by the way, you won't even be in the Matrix like they were in the 90s, living like a normal office job. You'll be in the virtual gulag one where you'll be wishing you were eating steak. The commandant will be eating the steak in front of you, and you'll be like, oh, I wish I wasn't in a bloody virtual prison. Too late for that, isn't it? You had to get on board with you-know-who.
So I think what I will say about this is, like, I hope other people go into the Matrix, because then there's just more real world for me. I mean, it's great. I like, I grew up as a Boy Scout. Like, I like being outside. I like seeing nature. I like doing these things, right? I don't want to be in a virtual, now I can enjoy what's good about virtual reality, but if I could, I wouldn't opt into, I would rather die than be eternally in virtual reality, because as Thorin said, you don't know what people will do to you and you have no power to control that. So actually terrifying. Now, I do think that VR esports, if you could control them with your mind, is interesting, but let me flip this on its head. If you guys have seen the Netflix show Love, Death, and Robots, which is very fun little like mind teaser vignettes, animated and made by a bunch of different people. In the first season, there is an absolutely incredible episode where the concept of it is basically people using their minds to control bioengineered monsters to do gladiatorial battles. So like you put on like a helmet that allows you to basically like inhabit this like crazy monster, and then people watch them fight for entertainment. That is fucking cool. And it's a great concept. And if you could do things like that, where you had basically a
like virtual rock'em sock'em robots, basically.
Correct. Yeah, it's like with that, and the monsters themselves don't have a consciousness, and like only move when they're controlled by people. So that's just cool. That's just really fucking cool. Anyway, it's great. You should go watch that.
What I'll say is this: some of you had better hope that all humans never go into this environment. This isn't esports, because here's why. The woke crowd's going to get really upset if it ends up being that the brain isn't identical for everyone. You haven't thought of the Pandora's box. You open that one. There's no excuses. It'll just be pure mind to mind. So I'm not even saying which one that one comes down on. Just would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Would you guys play a tabletop RPG as a show? Seen other esports personality do it, like Doa, Rachel Quirico, Uber, Golden Boy Sideshow? No. Here, let me clarify. And it's always a good one. It's also been done a good time. Anyway, like, would we basically play D&D is the question. So my answer to that is no. And here's why. It is actually not possible to create a better D&D show than Critical Role. You have incredible voice actors on that show. You have one of the best DMs ever, with Matt Mercer, and like, or not Matt Mercer. Sorry. No, Matt Mercer. That's his name. Sorry. And so how do you actually do what they're doing better than them? And I like to think of things that, we can do very well. I do think that one of the strengths of esports personalities is that we have a very unique skill in the modern era, which is that we can be entertaining and insightful for hours at a time, unscripted, which goes back to like, honestly, it's super cool because it goes back to oral language, like oral tradition poets like Homer, who didn't have, who weren't writing this down, who were telling these great, epic poetic narratives based on their own memory, right? And so it kind of goes back to a core human trait before the existence of writing, of long form storytelling and long form entertainment, which I think is awesome. And I studied it academically. So it's really fun for me in that way. And I do think that lends to a strength of playing these kind of games. My answer to that is I would rather do it in a different way. Nobody is doing persistent tabletop gaming. So games like Kingdom Death Monster or Pandemic, or not RPG games, but games where you could provide a lot of entertainment and value. Nobody's creating good content around that right now. So rather than try and go head to head with something like Critical Role, which for me is like an unwinnable battle, I would rather do something like that.
I mean, the game you play is like you're saying, it's just a real. You play like Necromunda or something. That would be like the game to play on fucking camera. I'm not going to do it. I don't give a fuck about any of that nerd shit.
Yeah, so like I can't compete with professional actors doing D&D. That's not a thing. But I can compete using the skill set that I have in different ways. If Valve asked you to create a new direction or for a direction for a new Counter-Strike game, what changes would you make? Well, this is a you question, not a me question.
I mean, one thing I would love to do is I would actually build into the actual default game a charges only style rule set where only the T rounds count and it's a set amount of time for that would be the default mode because essentially in the modern day that's how Valve implements the format, isn't it? Like the actual matchmaking game isn't whatever. I mean, they've got the short version now, but it's like 15 rounds aside, it's max rounds, the normal current setup. So I would brainwash everyone from day one to have the game the way I want it to be, which would be the best format basically competitively, but which never used it except for the first year and a half of Counter-Strike in the early 2000s. So there's one thing I would do. I think the second thing I would do, this is where I'm totally unique because I will die on this hill. I don't care. I personally think it is beyond stupid that esports games have to be identical for the person who plays it on day one today as the best players ever playing in the grand final of the World Championship. So one thing I would do is, I figured this out years ago, I would make a system where as you access different ranks, it wasn't just a rank. You were accessing a game that has slightly more features in it. You can do more things in the game, like the weapons are more powerful or there are more movement abilities or something. I would make it slightly like that. And I would make a fun version where people can opt in to play a custom game like that if they want. So you can still play whatever the mode is. But I think it would be cool if, like, essentially in League, the fucking shitty version in Bronze is like, it's almost like Season 1 League. And then, like, fucking Masters is like most of the abilities are unlocked, but it's only at the top level that all the rides fucking kit is totally OP. So I think that would be a very interesting approach, personally.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me because I think Counter-Strike is such a good game and timeless game as it is that if you make too many changes to it, I think you fuck it up. And you have to remember that if we're talking about real sports here, we need to be able to compare players across eras effectively, which is why having, very similar map pool over time is really important and similar game feel and similar mechanics. So I don't think it needs like a lot of adjustments because it's already the best esport out there, in my opinion. For years, I've been trying to find the VODs for the 2013 Champions Summer Finals. That was the
You'll never find it.
You'll find it in Korean, I'm pretty sure.
You can find it in other languages. It's actually on a Korean service, but you have to have like a social ID and signed up to that fucking particular cable service or whatever. I had a guy give me an account years ago. Or you have to look, unfortunately now the Twitch VODs will be gone, but you have to look if someone had a pirated stream, which was around a few years back. It's why I know, by the way, you'll love this, Monty. I've had cocksuckers tell me my whole time in League of Legends how Froggen isn't that good, and they've never saw the series where he carried against Korea's best. Cool. That's like you were talking shit about Pele and you never even watched him in the World Cup, you can't.
So 2013 Summer Finals was the KT.
Oh, I thought you meant the 2012 one, right? Okay.
No, this is the Faker Zed versus
they
Zed.
don't have the on OGN?
I'm pretty sure those VODs exist in English.
Should be the first one, surely.
Yeah, the one you're talking about, the 2012 ones were more difficult to find.
Those almost don't exist.
The Azubu Frost versus CLGEU series, that's hard to find. Yes. You can find them. Look, I'm very confident you can find the 2013 Summer Finals ones in Korean. You should be able to find the ones with me and Doa casting as well. The VODs are unavailable or corrupted. There is a spreadsheet that a Google spreadsheet with links to it. Let me see if actually I can find it real quick. I should have it bookmarked somewhere. Let me see if I can find this. It's been a while. 2013. Okay, I found the 2013 Spring VODs in Chinese. I have a bookmark for that. Or on a Chinese site. I'll have to find it later. I'm not going to do it right now, guys, I guess, because I can't find it quickly. But there are, there definitely, oh, wait, OGN History VODs here. I have it. Hold on. Let me see if I can find Winter Summer Finals. Let's see if I can find this. Oh, it's corrupted. That's too bad. Well, maybe you're right.
Like you said, the best chance actually would be something like a rebroadcast illegal hosting on the Korean service or something. So you'll just have to go out there and
It's
find
out there. I'm very confident the Korean version is out there. All right, how does GROGcoin actually support you guys in making money? Well, we've been over this before, but it basically allows us to create our own economy that is independent of the platforms. We do want to have other uses for GROGcoin in the future, which we'll get to eventually as we start to spin up more. But effectively, it also costs you less money because you're holding something instead of like paying a Patreon, but also it allows us to move better from like, if we basically you get locked in by the platforms, Patreon, Twitch, YouTube, all of these things, to like having subscribers on Twitch and all this other shit that makes it very hard for you to move from platform to platform. So we hope that by having our own currency where we create value in the long term, that we can do things with it that wouldn't be possible, or allow us to become more platform agnostic. How do we learn or educate ourselves to think more logically?
I mean, there's a way. This is what they used to actually teach in like Rome and Greece. It was called the Trivium. Sure. Go look it up. It's what is it, like grammar, rhetoric, and I can't remember what the third one is.
I mean, you can study logic. You can study
logic. Rhetoric. I think was the third one, maybe even. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can study these things, but also, I think like this is the value, and of course I will say this, of a liberal arts education, which I received. People will poo-poo the liberal arts education because they don't actually understand that it teaches you how to fucking think. And they just want to go into, applied educations. Like this is engineering, for example. And that's a very good real world skill, but it teaches you nothing about philosophy, art, the way to live your life, the way to think about things. Like I have a literature degree, right? And writing and the ability to write and the ability to think is what I learned. And that is a meta skill that I can apply to fucking anything. So it is really valuable to have these skills. And I think that liberal arts should be a core part of education, just as they were for, basically since the Enlightenment. And apparently people don't value that anymore because it's actually more valuable to companies to have you be dumb and just be able to do math. I've been looking to learn about Starcraft Brood War and have zero knowledge on the game. Any great matches to watch as starters?
Problem with that is like that's an impossible question
because really difficult.
I can't just tell you to watch the best game. You won't get it, will you? So I'd have to pick something like simple to watch. The problem is, by definition, that's no joke, mate. That is like saying I've never actually played or watched chess. What was the best chess game? You're not going to understand any of it. You're not going to understand why it's brilliant. You won't even understand what the moves they're doing. So I would say two things you could do. One would be play any version of StarCraft or even Warcraft. Doesn't even have to be StarCraft Brood War. Just play a game of StarCraft 2. Buy it. It'll be like, what, $9 now or something for the best pack. And just buy it. Play a few games of 1v1. At least you'll get a sense of like, oh, I'm building builds. This is my thing. Then also there'll be a bunch of tutorials from like the beginning of StarCraft 2 where people explain concepts like macro and micro and how the armies basically do the simple builds. Then after that, just go and look for some great final in the OSL or MSO. It's the 3-2 and just have a go. It can't give you everything. Here's the thing. I'm not about spoon feeding people. I'll tell you where the general store is. You figure the rest out, mate. I'm not making the fucking pie for you and then also spoon feeding it with a bit.
Well, it's also the problem with Brood War is that most of the best matches of all time were never broadcast in English. So you actually do have to know what you're watching in order to appreciate them, unless you're fluent in Korean. If you guys want, I mean, Tasteless and Artosis still do Brood War tournament broadcasts on their own, and they are maybe the best caster duo ever in English-speaking history. So they're wonderful to watch just on their own. They're very passionate about the game, and you can still watch those games now and appreciate Brood War in English. They still do StarCraft 2 as well with GSL in Korea, so there's many ways to get into it. Even today, it's not like the games are over. And then if the starting point can be, I'm going to watch the modern era of Brood War, once you understand it, because the game hasn't been patched for 20 years, guys, you can just go back and watch the Korean shit, and it's like the map's probably different, but the game is basically the same. Do you think Wright is so mental that Vedi is experiencing medical problems in the finals? He tweeted about him having low blood sugar and fatigue after game one, so he missed one game. Might reflect badly on him in their eyes. Well, he just came off of COVID, so I mean, I have sympathy for his problem. He probably I think he probably just felt bad, and Riot was like, just take a game off and see how you feel. and then come back. So no, I don't think it will reflect badly.
I think that's fine. I mean, there's other scenarios where I've heard of people having issues where it made them unreliable, but that was much more of a bigger issue in a separate scenario. In this particular case, it's not like he really shown them up or anything by saying that, has he? If anything, he's just shown he's a good worker. He'll keep working when he's ill.
Yeah.
You know?
Now that Nuggery is back in the LCK, can Gen.G get a top laner too, please?
Definitely not.
They're not going to, because they're in love with Thorin for whatever.
There's some sort of fucked up rule where, like, Aaron Rodgers, fucking Chovy, it used to be simple in CSGO. They're just never allowed to have even just like average level players at every other position, which would allow them to win. They always have to have, it's like the universe has to like balance them. Because they're imbalanced naturally in the game, Monty. The universe must balance them by always placing like a black hole of talent next to them that just sucks all their talent into it. It's just always the way it is, isn't it? I don't know why. It's same with Flame back in the day. Could never just bloody have a normal fucking jungler or whatever, or ADC. You had to have some guy which up and down, and every now and then he's good. This is just the fucking nature of the world, sadly. So I don't imagine Gen.G will. Not least because, unfortunately, Gen.G as an org, I've always thought that when they became Gen.G, they have very weird like recruiting patterns. They seem very hit or miss as to whether the players they get are good. They have some players are mega, and then they have some that are like, why are we getting these people? These are just average as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of confidence that Gen.G is going to reach a new ceiling of performance. I think they've kind of maxed out where they are and for this year. What common factors have you noticed between superstar players in games you've watched or covered? Well, I've covered 8 different games throughout my career, and I think that the most impressive thing about superstar players is that they are going to break the meta or the game in ways that you don't expect, that no one has ever done before. And that comes in either unorthodox strategies that are visible from the start of the game, such as a specific champion pick or a specific build order, or they're going to be, and I think this is the most important part, reactive and creative on the fly to come up with a new solution to a problem using the same available tools that other players have that has never been done before except in that moment, and is unique to that moment in time. They will react in a way that is unorthodox, and that reaction will be brilliant because of the circumstances surrounding it. That to me is really the hallmark of the true star players in many games.
I've got 2 that I can do broad strokes with here. One, and this is just a peculiarity that I myself would notice because of my own situation. One, I would say the prevalence of like being on the autism spectrum is enormous when you are talking about like the greatest players to ever play some of these games. Like, I think essentially
Actually, probably is true.
They're actually a bit lucky in the sense that like they're almost pre-selected by their natural setup to be able to do things like the joke is this. You know, when we hear those stories of like the Korean work ethic and it's like, oh, fucking hell, man, live, imagine having to practice 15 hours a day. Kobe Bryant, who's probably the player in the NBA who practiced the most in his life, once described it like this. He said to me, it's like having to eat your vegetables, but I actually like vegetables. That's the best way to explain it. Like, yes. If you're the kind of person, like I say the same thing about one of my articles. I don't do as many written articles anymore. The reason why I never had any concern anyone could ever fuck with me on written articles is because I actually enjoy doing the 10 hours of research. That's the annoying part to the other person. They want to write the article. I've even done the 10 hours of research and not written the article. Just like, I changed my mind actually. But it was brilliant doing all that research. Now I know all the fucking teams that interacted. Oh, I forgot about that game. It's fucking sick. I'd love it. So that was one thing I would say. I think essentially they're almost different to normal people. And then secondly, I think this is a really interesting one. This applies generally to all players, but because superstar players are the best in the game and have the most like tactile control, like everything about what they do, essentially their personality is reflected enormously in their playing style and strengths. I'll give you an example. So you know Double Lift, he's a sort of guy in real life, right? It's almost like his mouth goes faster than his brain can. And then you know what? Sometimes he says something genius and then right after he follows up with a complete blunder. Who was he as a player? Incredible physical mechanics, didn't really have much of the brain to go with it, needed a bit of help being piloted around, eventually figured out how to succeed by just doing what suits him. There you go. That's what loads of them are like. Loads of them, it's like the way they express.
They're very highly specialized.
It shows up in the game. It shows up in the game what their personality traits are, what their strengths as a person are. It's why, for example, I think people always run great players from that choker tag because they sort of know that in some way it does imply something about me. Like maybe I'm a bit insecure, or I overthink things, or I need things to be really comfortable, or I'm not that I can't perform. Like that's why I feel like they're always that's like an electric fence to them when you say you're a choker. They always deny it for the first 3 years or whatever, don't they, till they finally sort of get the epiphany that maybe they do have an issue.
How mental is it that the last international tournament Faker won was with Huni on his team? I mean,
Pretty
it's pretty
wild.
offensive.
Yeah, that is pretty wild.
It's pretty offensive. How important is it to read loads of fiction for the purpose of your general lines of work? I consume a ton of nonfiction work and never saw value in fiction.
That's amazing. By the way, spoiler, are you ready? Everything that a human has ever done came from fiction because it came from
Yep.
the imagination. Every
Yep.
real world engineering application came from someone's imagination. In fact, as far as I can tell from my basic reading, every scientific revolution comes from the opposite of what they claim. They would claim gradual improvement of A plus B. No, every one comes from a guy having a crazy idea and then someone reverse engineers it into a real world thing. As far as I can tell, fiction and imagination is the most incredible thing that will ever exist. And how does it exist? It's only in your bloody head, but somehow it can tangibly come into the real world.
You have to remember
Who needs it, mate? You know?
what your consciousness is just a fucking brain trapped in a dark skull, right? Everything about your perceptions is an interpretation of reality, right? You have no real contact with reality.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I think I don't read a lot of fiction these days. I did when I was, in school, because that was my focus, was literature basically. And so now I read a lot more nonfiction than I do fiction. But I think that fiction is extremely important because it's the only way that you have access to alternative ways of thinking about things. I think, the best science fiction is basically taking modern problems, reframing them in terms of future technology, and then representing them to you to think about what is going on in the world as it stands right now and how things could be different or how issues could be handled differently. That is the best science fiction takes you out of your current mode of thinking and reframes it in a way to have you consider a different angle. And that's really the brilliance of it, right? And so I do think that there is obviously insane value and beauty and artistry in fiction overall. And it just depends on what is compelling to you about fiction. Because, like, is there an example of a particular piece of fiction that heavily influenced your own work and the structure of creating narratives? I mean, mythology for me, tons of different forms of mythology. I think Joseph Campbell broke it down very well in terms of how these story structures exist across cultures in mythological tales, and how that's very applicable to any piece of fiction that you want to have kind of a core resonance with almost every human.
Is the genius of fiction. So, for example, say you enjoy reading non-fiction. A classic genre of non-fiction is obviously military history, Monty. It's quite a popular one with the old school gaming crowd, keyword old school there, right? Obviously, they love these stories of brilliant commanders who made great choices and epic heroes. Spoiler, just go to fiction. That way you don't have to have it actually happen. You don't have to lie. You can just remake a character like that.
That's why Ender's Game is sick.
That's
why Ender's Game is cool.
And choose these scenarios to play out however you want to express the same idea instead of having to. Because the joke is, when a real life story gets good, what do we say? I wouldn't even believe that if it was in a movie. Just fucking watch the movie in that case. Skip the real life part.
The Dom Monty Thorin episode where he went over goats by roll is one of my favorite episodes ever. I really like the 3-man dynamic, adds a level of depth. Is there a world where you get all three of us on a show? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll do that more. I think that was a great piece for, off-season content where we can have those kind of conversations. I think is really interesting. So maybe we'll do that more off-season after Worlds this year. I think that's the time and the place for that. I recently found reading an hour at night is significantly improving my sleeping habit. This is very true. Do you have any routines that you found helpful?
Well, one thing I would say is when it comes to reading, obviously physical books are the best. But if you're in a scenario where you don't have the lights up and all that, like the Kindle also is just weird. It's not like a phone screen. Like I know a lot of people read on their phone as well. It ain't like that. Like I find when I read with the Kindle screen, if I'm going to go to sleep, it induces it. It helps me a lot more. So I actually also like to read the Kindle before I go to sleep. Another one I do is I just mix glycine in a thing of water and I just have some of that. That aids with it. Makes me feel a bit tired. Like 15 minutes later.
Yeah, I think, and also just dedicating time to reading is really important to keep your brain active, because it is an active way instead of just passively receiving information from a TV. And like, I think there's great artistry to be found in film as well, but when you read, you actually do, in fact, have to engage your mind and use your imagination. And that is just very helpful and also will help you sleep better as long as you're not reading it on a screen. Any other routines you find helpful? I mean, I just get away from things, guys. Like anything that is demanding your attention stupidly, like phone notifications or anything like that. Even just having an hour a day where you just put your phone in a box or leave it in a different room and just don't fucking think about it is probably very good for you. My phone is always on silent so that I choose when I look at it, right? I literally just, I will sit there, and if I don't feel like looking at my phone, then people text me and I'll get back to them a couple hours later. And I just don't have my life dictated by annoying electronics.
I've also found, by the way, that when you do reading, it's better if you read fiction before bed like that than non-fiction, because non-fiction makes you start thinking about things in life and other things that can. The fiction stuff takes you out of it into a different world for a little bit. So I find it's a lot more sort of restful, in my opinion.
All right, I don't know what this question means. Will Sweden be brought to justice for letting Caramelldansen see the light of day? What is that?
I have no idea. Caramelldansen.
I actually don't know what that is.
You see, it looks like it's some sort of shitty. It's just some shit song. What even is this
okay. I don't know what that
just
is.
Some weeb shit. I've never heard of it.
Just some weeb shit. Thank God I don't pay attention to this. Can you compare and contrast this MSI Game 5 to SKT's 2015 loss?
The SKT one doesn't count as much because remember they played Easy Hoon for the first like 2 or 3 games or something, and then also they did that stupid draft in the 5th one, didn't they? So
well, I mean, I think also it was much more hype in Game 5 because it was like, is 12-0 undefeated LeBlanc? Oh my God, they let it through. Here's like, oh, you've activated my trap card. Like it was like a fucking anime narrative. It was actually really sick. It was really fun, and especially to be. I was there in Tallahassee, Florida, the greatest esports city on earth, for that one. And it was really fun. That was a really fun game. I was actually really disappointed because in this Game 5, it wasn't like, oh yes, truly they have trapped them with this Yumi pick, and then they just get bodied from like 3 minutes into the game. It was actually really boring. I mean, not all 5-game series are created equal, and just because it's a 5-game series doesn't make it great. This final was actually pretty fucking boring. It was a bunch of one-sided stomps either direction. So it didn't feel like the games were, it was like a back and forth game. It was like, oh, well, this game's over. On to the next one, I guess. Like, it was pretty dull. So that's it. We're done with the episode for this week. We probably will not have an episode for a couple of weeks because the LPL will start on the 10th, I believe. And then we may have one on the 13th, but that'll just be LPL and a rest of the world preview. All of the leagues will be back by the 20th. So just hit up Twitter. We have, calendar on the Insight on Esports Discord. If you guys join that, very easy way to follow along. But we'll have at least a week off, maybe 2 weeks, and then we'll be back with more SI. So thank you. Goodbye.